Let's go.
All right. Hey, welcome. Welcome, live stream audience. Welcome, people that are here for podcasts in the park. Uh, this is it. We've got an
That's right.
afternoon.
Race, opportunity, and obstacles.
Yes, thank you.
This is loud.
I'm Paul Moore from Stark Garden,
Daryl Ross from Stark Garden.
and we are here to have conversations that are hopefully real, honest, and timely. So we're going to have our recently hired city manager coming up.
Yeah. So we're going to do
Yeah.
a high-level overview. So what we tried to do is put together a couple conversations by way of live podcasts. So we have everything from system-level conversations with the city manager to grassroots with, in my humble opinion. We have some bright young ladies from the Latina Network. So really trying to get a different perspective of race, opportunity, and obstacles in this great city we call Grand Rapids.
Yes, in a very classically fall day where
That's
it
right.
is nice and chilly and drizzly. So, up first, you ready?
Let's go.
All right. Up first, we're going to hear from Diatribe.
Who from Diatribe are we hearing from? Diatribe is the nonprofit full of talented artists.
Yes, they are using performing arts to empower young people to share their stories, raise awareness of social issues, and be active members in their community. Headed up by the Fabel, the poet, who is also, I believe, the poet laureate of Grand Rapids. And you'll be hearing from him later. But first, it's going to be G. Foster, a.k.a. Autopilot. Sorry, G. Foster II. He graduated from Muskegon High School in the year 2000 and received the Wade H. McCree Academic Scholarship. Attending GVSU, he earned a BA in the communications in 2008 and has since used his degree to launch multiple language art projects and collective artist groups. He is currently engaged in many personal entrepreneurial pursuits. In 2015, G. Foster II and his business partner co-founded River Dolphin Productions. He is also the founder and host of the original Back to the 90s parties. He also founded Auto Tees and Fitz Clothing Company, focused on promoting Grand Rapids and Michigan through creative wordplay and design. G. Foster II is the host of one of the city's premier weekly nightlife events, the Drunken Retort.
Right.
Check it out.
Our guy, G. Foster.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you for the introduction, man. Thank you. I am G. Foster II, a.k.a. Autopilot. I am glad to be here with you. Brand new dad. Had a baby 3 months early on July 30th, so my baby is in the NICU still. And that's been a crazy adventure. I actually named her after my grandfather, and he is battling prostate cancer right now. So it's a blessing to still be here on this stage to talk to you, even though going through so much, man. That's what performing means to me. But let's dive into this conversation. I have multiple poems where I either talk about family or I talk about like racial issues, and being asked to come here today to talk about racial issues, I'm going to hit you hopefully in your heartstrings, and I hope you enjoy it. This first piece is in response to the 5 young boys that got pulled over after leaving the Croc Center. It was, I believe, something that shouldn't happen. It doesn't happen anywhere like East Grand Rapids. Doesn't happen in Cascade. But it happened here, and I feel like we should be better and bigger than this. And this poem came about from watching the video of how the police responded to that situation. And it's called This Doesn't Happen in Forest Hills or Cascade or East Grand Rapids. Boys, stop. Hold it right there. You fit the description. No matter your age or accuser or description, you always fit it. Get on the ground now. I said, get on the ground now. Keep your hands where I can see them. Innocent bystander, go back into your house. All you blacks comply. Hey, Troy, back up. How do you want to handle this? Okay, calm down, all right? I said calm down and just do as we say. Now give me your innocence on newly purchased body cam, on the news, on repeat, going viral, the moment you cease being a kid. Now let's hear that sullied, tear-filled cry for help, for the answers to that question, why is this happening to you? You're going to learn today, I don't have a heart for black kids. I said, keep your hands up, walk back to me, face forward, give me the laugh that won't sound the same, because you won't want to share it anymore. This is going to crack your voice worse than puberty. Yours will now sound like falsely accused. Then give me your smiles while we're at it. Your mother's favorite, the one all your friends and family will miss. I'll replace it with nightmares. Taste this PTSD. You like it, you love it. Now look at this black barrel, your god of destruction, aimed at black youth in black part of town, and realize this is actually a stick-up. Now give me your mother's tears, her desperate, you don't understand, that's my baby screams. Tell her greatest fear almost came true. I agree, she shouldn't let y'all go nowhere. Why'd you leave when a fight broke out? Now you're at the wrong place at the wrong time. There's too many of y'all in one area. Tell your mother I don't apologize, I won't either. Forget her and your childhood. I'm a parent, but it's apparent my kids nor their friends would never partake in such an experience. I don't have skin in the game. I'm just doing my job, like hate, like soldiers just taking orders. Lots of kids out here have guns. Like, I'm not just gonna walk up and ask if they got a gun. I follow protocol. I got a solid foundation, a fraternal order backed by a blue wall of silence, white supremacy roots, suspensions with pay that sound more like vacations. I'm a part of a group that watches itself and hardly ever sees wrong or grand jury or indictment or prison. This is Grand Rapids anyway. Can't you read? We pull over people of color here at double the rate. You were told this is the second worst place for black people, and yet here you are like gluttons for punishment and pain without rebuke. This is the #1 place to raise unblack families, he said. Lucky nobody got hurt, but they did. See, their 15 minutes of pain, famously shown over and over again, will last a lifetime. Every time they see lights, uniforms, hear sirens, see GRPD. Look at your impact officers. I hope one day you do see color, like red and white in the shape of a conscious stop sign. Really think about what your contributions are to these communities that you don't care about, because we can even Google your responses now. To you young men, I'm sorry. Even for this poem, I'm sorry. You're no longer kids anymore, just victims of circumstance and protocol and Grand Rapids. Dear Mayor, this isn't bliss. Thank you. Appreciate you. If you ever watch that video, what I did in that piece was take the words that the officer used and turned it into a poem. And then this next piece is about how old the fight against people of color is. It's called Rope-a-Dope. Blue, black, and red, purple. Blue, black, and red, purple bruises form together in a symmetrical pattern like picnic blanket skirts. Dark, darker, dark, darker, remembering. These things resembling your childhood scissors, the colors cut deeply into the next skin. The rope that burned left way more than 3 degrees. Ain't no telling how many of us could have been doctors. The news sealed the carcass like a bow on your favorite nigga, a silenced one. The next dead one. See, the rope that burned left trauma, left regret, taught fear, instilled it into your next of kin. Did the dirty demons work to perfection, stole life, took from families, friends, and communities, gave back to nature, though. These brown, shook, bleeding shells already watered from the tears of the recently deceased and the mournful. Grave or garden, we ain't never been turnips unless it's missing. See, the rope tied together all the years of torture, hate, binds together a long history of strange fruit. See, they paraded us, marched us to the graves, got us above cities like Batman's signal, got us in trees like a stick up. See, they bred us, big gamed us like trophies, hunted us for sport, different beautiful hues glowing from the torches they carried, probably during the most grandiose cascading colored cloud ballet of sunset that you will never forget your last. It's like God's looking right at you just for a second, and if you're careful, you can look right back and then realize, forget Ricky Fitz and whoever's American beauty or dream this is. See, they hung us like chandeliers until our light no longer shine. They Emmett Tilled us, then tilled us imminently into the soil, worked us to the bone. If you think about it, their actions put us back into the same boat. Speaking of boats, where are your slave ships? See, your history books say you like to boast and brag. How is you quiet now, not showboating? See, those same ropes that hoisted sails, family crests, company banners, Confederate flags, hatred helps lift your flammable crosses. It's crazy to think that ropes back in the day was made of hemp, still hanging us. 25 to life in us, charging us for being us, rope-a-doping us. Thank you. This piece is about Grand Rapids, man. I've been here for almost like 15 years now, and I do consider it home. And you always have to look at your home with a higher degree, right? You can't be biased, and like you can always call me out, and I hope that I can always call you out if we're not being the best versions of ourselves. So this piece is all about hope, and it's called We Are GR. They say home is where the heart is, and the Grand River now flows through mine. We are more than just the second largest city in Michigan. We are ahead of our time. We are Grand Rapids, Calder City, Furniture City, Bruce City, USA, home of Art Prize, entrepreneurs, movers and shakers and doers, and we want our shine and our say. See, we are growth in the way that others try to emulate. Can't imitate, replicate, or take away from what we've done and what we've accomplished, what we've won, and what we want. We want better schools, education, health, friendships, champions, communities, discussions, participation, togetherness, fair business, employment, entrepreneurs, equal opportunities, and wealth. See, we want to stop the divisions and better ourselves. We must continue to think grander, move rapidly, learn from our mistakes, and be the change that we want to see. We are tackling our issues and removing the labels each and every day. We are radiant Rapidians, really realizing how revolutionary we could become. See, we rally for each other, rising like griffins in legendary stature. Griffins protect the most prized possessions, which must be us. We have a GR drive to move forward and help one another. We think local first. Like our well houses, we're getting rid of homelessness by giving people homes. We're getting rid of not having a voice by giving people poems. Each Rapidian is a building block through time and not a stepping stone. But there is heartache at home, though. We need more minority businesses, accountability, home ownership, chances, and examples of what our kids could strive for. I implore each person listening to this to do more. Let's not just build in the neighborhoods, but uplift them. We haven't reached bliss yet, but we have made her our mayor. See, we're linking up our neighborhoods, increasing our spectrums, blending our events with equity and diversity. GR USA, I tip my hat off to you. We may weather storms, and our artists can rock, roll, sing, paint, play, rhyme with the greats, becoming that themselves. We ride our own way like the jokes in our Revenant. We reinvent how we want the world to see us. We will not let the rest of the world tell our story, though, because the story is still being written. We get back up after a loss just like Peter Quillen. See, our hills have heritage, our city has history, our future can be whatever we make it. I know it'll be grand because it's in our name, it's in our nature, it builds our neighborhoods. We are GR. From hillsides to heartside, from south side to east side, to the west side to east GR, from the north side to worldwide. I am the way, you are the way. If we support ourselves, we support each other. We are GR. I am Foster, AKA Autopilot. Appreciate you.
All right. Oh. G. Foster II, a.k.a. Autopilot.
That was amazing.
I can think of
That was amazing.
no better way to start this
Another
off.
round of applause. Not only did he speak local, spoke historical, talked about the Confederacy, talked about Grand Rapids being the best place to raise non-white children. So hopefully we can keep on that path as these conversations go on. I think one thing we have to really do and embrace is material, fact, and history. So hopefully today our conversations can be rooted in that truth and true history, and we can move forward collectively.
Yeah. So the next conversation is incredibly appropriate. Probably the most significant public leader in Grand Rapids is the Grand Rapids city manager. And that's who's coming up next. Mark Washington is the first black city manager for Grand Rapids in our 170 years of city government. And he's going to be interviewed by Brian Kelly, who does the Full Exposure podcast. So Brian Kelly is a photographer. If you check out the Full Exposure podcast's webpage, what you'll see are incredible photos of each person that he's interviewed on the Full Exposure podcast. And also, these conversations are pretty candid, pretty relaxed, and we don't get to hear too much from our city manager. So we took it as an opportunity to hear from him today. So let's welcome Brian and Mark Washington. You want to say something about our city manager?
Am I bringing up Mark?
Yeah.
Mr. Mark Washington.
There we go.
First black city manager, personal friend of mine, guy who came more than equipped to make change in Grand Rapids. But he needs our help as a community, so let's bring up Mark. He can talk about his vision. We can tell him our vision, and we can figure out how to move forward. Thanks.
Here we go. Mark, how are you today?
Doing good.
Doing good. We haven't had the pleasure of meeting. First, let me welcome you to our great city. I know it's been a couple of years, but I just want to dive in terms of the backdrop of this conversation, and also just kind of get your. I was digging in a little bit at what I could find online about you, and I know that your educational and professional background was in Texas, and your last role was at the city of Austin, Texas, which I think is a well-regarded city in terms of being progressive and having some ideas and a little bit crazy, which I think is good. And but I wonder what, in your first 2 years here, what impressions and contrasts and things that you have of Grand Rapids have you started to get to know the city from scratch? Because there aren't many people in city leadership that really have a from scratch perspective of our community.
Yeah, first of all, let me thank you for having me here this afternoon, and thank everybody for watching and for being here out at the parks and this wonderful bridge event. We good? Mm-hmm. Can you guys hear me okay? Good. Well, you know, it's been an amazing journey so far, because when I arrived here in Grand Rapids, first of all, I appreciate Brother Foster there. He basically, that's the platform of what I'm going to be talking about, that you laid out our whole municipal future and present. But when I arrived in Grand Rapids, it was during a time of economic prosperity. We were riding a real high wave, but yet there was this subtle reality that, you know, we knew that there was still quality of life that not every Grand Rapidian was experiencing. I mean, businesses, as you can see with the cranes in the air and all of the people who are out enjoying many of the amenities downtown, but that's not the experience of everyone. And the first year was really focused on continuing the momentum, but making it more inclusive. And I think now coming into this is not second year, and with the pandemic and the economic crisis, as well as the issues around social inclusion, I'm getting a lot of feedback. Are we
Hearing
good?
a bit of an echo. Let's see.
All right. Test.
Got
Check
it.
1, 2.
I'm going to move back a little bit under our director. That might be causing the interference.
Back. Okay. All right, we're good now. Yeah. So now, you know, this is a moment in the midst of several crises, and we've had a strategic focus coming in. That's the first thing that I did when I came here, is to assess what are our priorities, what are our resources, and what are we doing to move the needle on some of those critical areas.
Yeah.
And we created, you know, a framework. We know we needed to do things around public safety, economic development, mobility, equity and inclusion, engagement. But what COVID has done is amplified all of our weaknesses
Yes.
as a community, whether it is disparities in health, but also the concerns around racial injustice and racism, systematically as well as individually, have been highlighted since then. And so what is also done is not only amplified our weaknesses, but it's also, from an organizational perspective, helped me to amplify our strengths.
Yes.
And so now we can focus on areas that we need to shore up. And you know, improving public safety and policing is one of the key issues around the country, and certainly here in Grand Rapids. And I'm looking forward to talking more about that.
Sorry to interrupt. I would like to get to community policing a little bit later, but I just wanted to, there was one thing I forgot to do in the early stage fright, is I just want to explain the role of city manager, because I think a lot of people think the mayor runs the city or the city commission, and that's patently, organizationally, the city manager is the chief executive officer of the city.
Right.
You oversee a $540 million budget as of when your bio was written, a 1,600-person workforce, and all city departments, operations, policies, and programs related to public safety, economic development, community services, mobility, infrastructure, health, environment, recreation, and community engagement.
Yep.
Do you want more on your plate?
Well, city manager form of government, council manager or commission manager form of government is an opportunity for the citizens to be the political voice of the community, but to have a professional administrator run it day to day. So the same way you wouldn't have a person elected to the hospital board and then have them be the president of the hospital running the hospital without a hospital administrator background. Or you would not have someone elected to a board of any major organization who would not have the professional experience as the CEO of it. And so what this does is it allows the community to be represented in the governing body, but the day-to-day running of the organization is turned over to an administrator who has had experience and education working in government.
Well, and I think you perfectly set up something I'd like to ask for a little bit later, but in terms of how we're guiding politically through these times as opposed to administrative. We have elective officials that have mandates from their wards, their districts, right, and they have interests, and some of them are aligned and some of them are competing. But I wanted to also just set the stage by reading a little bit about your from your bio, because I was really impressed with this. It says, Mark is committed to making Grand Rapids a city that is nationally recognized for being equitable. That was the first word you chose. Welcoming, innovative, and collaborative, with a robust economy, safe and healthy community, and the opportunity for high quality of life for all. And that is your bio. And I wanted to ask you about equity. There's a lot of conversation about equity. It's one of the defining things you define for yourself in your role. And what does equity mean for you, and specifically for our community, as you look through equity through that purview in your role as a human being with your background and what you bring forward in your experience? What does equity mean for us and for you in Grand Rapids?
Well, I'll start there, then I'll go back a little bit. So having an equitable community is one that you would hope that the outcome for one's success is not predicated by their race or their income or class level, but they truly have a equitable and inclusive opportunity to engage in prosperity and all the things that Grand Rapids has to offer. And in that vision of the city is exactly opposite the experience I had growing up, and many people in their lived experience growing up, where you were not part of an inclusive, equitable environment. The school system that I grew up in was not equitable in terms of the kind of educational opportunities that it offered to other schools. So was the neighborhood, et cetera, and all the communities that I lived in growing up. And so being a public administrator, I saw it as my opportunity. Not only, I don't come to work, but I come to serve out of a servant leader perspective. And out of the service that I wanted to render was to make sure that I could transform a city at the highest level into a community that I never had the opportunity to live in as a young person growing up. So professionally, I came out of Austin. But prior to Austin, what's not on my resume, a lot of times we talk about what's on the resume, but to really understand why I do the job, we have to talk about what's not on my resume. And I grew up born in Louisiana, and my mother did not speak English as a first language. My grandmother spoke no English.
What language did she
Creole,
speak?
Creole French. Spoke no English. Grandparents were sharecroppers, and so we grew up pretty poor. My parents divorced. Father, every kind of criminal justice system, whether it's city, county, state, or federal, he had been in. And this was a Vietnam veteran. And after he got back from Vietnam, what he needed was mental health assistance, behavioral health assistance, and what he got was everything that the criminal justice system had to offer. And so I grew up in that kind of environment. Growing up, we moved to Port Arthur, Texas, southeast Texas, south of Houston, and we lived in the Jacks, in the projects. And I didn't know of any other life outside of that kind of life until I had an opportunity to meet some people, mentored me, and gave me an opportunity to go to college. And I'm like, wow, college was like day and night from the community that I lived in. And I often wondered why we didn't have an opportunity to experience that kind of quality of life. And so then I got into public service, and it became more clear to me that more communities need people on the inside that are committed to transforming the cities and organizations into more equitable type of experiences.
Growing up, as you mentioned, quite poor and impoverished, and I think wealth and income disparity and poverty in our community really puts tremendous pressure on families, on the community, on all our infrastructure. It creates outcomes with many things we'll get to about the how we're evolving our police department and all that stuff. But how did you personally sort of avoid some of the pitfalls that many people might fall into under the tremendous pressure of poverty and the stresses that puts on a young man growing up and deciding what to do with your education and your future?
Yeah. Well, I just think I was fortunate because it wasn't that I wasn't part of it. I hung out with the homies, and when you live in the kind of environment that I grew in, it's all around. Whether it is people banging or hustling, and at the end of the day, those were my friends, and those were my teammates, and those were my classmates, and we grew up together. And it was certainly a different kind of culture then, because it was a life not everybody knew. They weren't really out loud with it. So my mother and their mother, really, it was kind of more of an underground thing. Matter of fact, had a good friend of mine, Bun B, Bernard, who is part of UGK. We grew up in the same city, went same high school. He's part of the group, the Underground Kings, and he raps and talks about his experience around the cuts in Port Arthur in Short City, and those were the kind of friends that I grew up with. And apart from the grace of God, I happen to have a few positive people in my life, but fortunately, my experience could be something else today. There's just an asterisk on everything of the resume that I have, because I'm one mistake from not being on this stage a long time ago. So I can't say it's formulistic. It's sure. Just there were opportunities that were presented that fortunately that I was able to take advantage of. But that's not the experience of everyone that's in that community, and we need more people to be able to reach out and help people. I mean, the conversation about the bridge, that's really what we're trying to help this community see. We need more bridge makers, because there are lots of barriers, there are lots of obstacles, and it starts with institutions, government, business, but it also starts with individual. We need people who individually want to lift their voice, use their experiences to be bridge makers to the future.
Yeah.
And so Anyway,
Well, I was
that's my
struck
experience.
in preparation to chat with you. I wasn't sure if I would use something that I found, and I'm a big fan of I'm a photographer, so a lot of the photography history and things I like a lot. And one of my favorite photographers of all time is Gordon Parks, who was an African American photographer who went on in some of the worst conditions racially in our country to become one of the most famous photographers in the world, and became a movie director and one of the most successful, elegant, amazing, talented men I've ever seen his work. But there's a quote from him, which I wasn't going to use until now, but it reminded me a bit of the way you said that you grew up. And he said, quote, "I picked up a camera because it was a choice of weapons against what I hated most about the universe. Racism, intolerance, poverty. I could have just as easily picked up a knife or a gun like many of my childhood friends." This would have been in the 30s. Most of whom were murdered or put in prison, but I chose not to go that way. I felt that I could somehow subdue these evils by doing something beautiful that makes people recognize me by, and thus make a whole different life for myself, which has proved to be so.
Yeah, powerful. And I wish I could say I picked up just the weapon of the books, but I picked up both. I just didn't get caught. I mean, like a lot of young people, I made, choices that I would not have made today. But fortunately, in addition to those physical weapons, I had people who. My mother was very, very instrumental in. I mentioned about her background, but she was a person that worked very, very hard. Worked from camp to camp. When you can't see the sun coming up and you can't see it going down. She worked all day, Saturdays and Sundays. I helped her clean homes. But what she wanted me to do is make sure that I was a good student, and I wanted to do the best to not disappoint her. But there were many times I did make bad choices, and I just want to ease into this conversation a little bit about some of the mistrust, at least with law enforcement. Yeah. I had experiences as a young person where we were profile going up, and such that we had our own experiences with mistrust. We would not call the police on each other, one another. I never called 911 until I was almost 33, 34 years old, and had all kinds of experiences.
Wait a minute. Why did you call 911?
I was at a church, and someone walked in the church butt naked. And they came to the altar.
It's a progressive congregation, I'll tell you that.
No, but it was in the hood. It was in the hood. It was seriously. And I regret calling 911 because the person, I mean, obviously was high and hooked on stuff, and I didn't call. As a matter of fact, there was somebody else called. So we suggested, they asked me, was it okay? And I said, yeah. Well, we should have, because the police responded, and they came in with cuffs and taking the person to jail, and what they needed was, they were addicted. They needed mental health services. And so, but before that, even as a kid, I can remember my car, first car that I ever had, was broken into several times. It was stolen, and we never called the police because the streets knew who did it, and we knew how to either go get it or go get quote unquote justice. Sure. And that was a culture that we were, it wasn't, you were just raised that way, because then you knew back then, and now this is not Grand Rapids, if you knew that you were calling. The other time, I'll take that back, the first time we called the police, that was the second time. The first time I called the police was, I got not 33, that was the second time. First time was around 25, and somebody went to jail that we really didn't want to go to jail. So all we want to do is call them and calm them, but this was right around the OJ trial, and so after that we learned whenever you call the police, somebody's going to jail. So if you love the people that you're with and you know, people get out of hand, try to handle it yourself, don't call them. Now, that's not what we want the police to have experienced today.
Right.
We want them to be helpful. But I'm just saying the perceptions that I grew up with about law enforcement is common, even in a more exaggerated way today.
And I would assume that you're in line with many people in the community. I don't think a lot of people are real excited to see the police come down the street, especially if there's something that isn't violent occurring and the police get called. Usually somebody's getting hauled off somewhere. They don't. It almost feels transactional at times. It's like if you're getting called, someone's getting checked out of the community and going somewhere. And that's a wide stroke, but I have a better lead-in for this part of the conversation. But
Daryl told me to keep it real.
I want it real. That's why we're here. It's called Full Exposure Podcast. Not like you're the guy who came into your church. We're not doing full exposure like that. But on Tuesday, Chief Payne and the city released a strategic plan, which has your support, and at least at this phase, which focuses on data-driven policing to identify crime hotspots, community partnerships, and more engagement, different types of engagement. And you mentioned, I watched a city commission meeting in August when this was first kind of rolled out, and you were saying that this new strategic plan has challenged the psyche of the police department, I think is what you said. And I'd like you to toe into that, just like what's, well, let me set one other bar, and then I think it'll give you better context to my question. Chief Payne has mentioned this is a pivotal point in our history in Grand Rapids in terms of policing, and he acknowledged that the police department has contributed to systemic racism and systemic outcomes that have put pressure on various communities, be it you're impoverished or a person of color or just in the wrong part of town, so to speak. There shouldn't be any wrong parts of town from my perspective. You should be able to go wherever without having an issue. His vision, again, alongside of you setting a high bar for the city, is he wants the Grand Rapids Police Department to be the most trusted police department in the United States. He says that multiple times in that. It probably says it in the document, the full-length document. What I found interesting was that he said, "We will no longer police the community as we think it should be policed, but rather how the community has told us how they should be policed." And that's a fundamental shift. And again, I ask you, how might that challenge the psyche of a police department with a long heritage of how and ideas about what's effective in policing in Grand Rapids?
Yeah. Well, that is where you get to trust in a relationship, where you're fulfilling mutual expectations. So regardless if it's a marital relationship or a business relationship, each party wants their individual expectations fulfilled. And so in order to do that with the community, you have to know how the community wants to be policed. What are the problems the community is concerned about, in addition to the problems that the law enforcement is concerned about, and where is there a common agreement on how we work together to solve those issues. And so that it is about trust, and when you have that kind of trust, you're not afraid to call on law enforcement to help you in crisis, also to help you in not only where there's physical threat, but in any conditions. We have police officers who they don't just solve crime. I was talking to one of the deputy chiefs one day, and they were telling me in the winter, they said about some of the stats that we're doing. They said, and then we've done so many assists. I said, assists? What is an assist? The only thing I knew of an assist is when you play basketball and you pass it to someone right before the score. He said, oh, that's when someone is stuck on the road, and we go and we do the assist. We give them get our car and we give them a push. And there were more assists that day than arrests. that's the kind of policing and community that the people want, where the police department is helpful. And so the chief wants to restore that trust. And now there are a lot of people who have trust, but there are a lot of people who don't, because of either national or their own lived experience with police. And so in order to make sure we do that, we have to find the issues that are priorities together. So jaywalking is not a priority right now in this community. We are not getting anybody who's hit by cars, and I'm just giving an example. So we don't expect the police to be citing people who do that. But if there are serious violent crimes that are happening, we need to, instead of treating everyone like criminals, we need to work with the community and see where those crimes are occurring, why they are occurring, and agree on a policing effort that helps to solve a real problem for people who are causing real harm.
Well, and I think part of that is, you know, a lot of damage is done over decades. This isn't something that can just roll out a new strategic plan. The proof has to be in the pudding, as my dad used to say. You have to build this back slowly through bridges. You don't build a span over a river and overnight. It takes a little bit of getting closer to the spanning together the community. I think the challenge is that, you know, many times, you know, as you've acknowledged, every community faces this, where areas that are more crime-ridden get more patrols. So you get stopped more, you get pulled over. There's felony stops where just as a protocol, you're going to be under gunpoint and laid on the ground for a matter of 5, 10, 15 minutes until more police officers can come. That person might be completely innocent and just having a bad day because of that encounter. And this happens over and over and over again for many, many years, where you get to the point where you don't want to call the police. You are suspicious of all these things. So Chief Payne, I think for one, and I think from the city manager's position where you sit, I think you've done a good job of just getting it out into the open that this is a problem. We're not trying to wash over this in any way. These are frank problems that we're having. And I've been impressed, just personally, just observing the candor in which Chief Payne has acknowledged problems, listened to the community. You've listened to the community. And I wonder, in terms of enacting that through the police department, because the other way that city and policing works is, you know, Chief Payne can have a grand vision of how the police department operates. You might be on board, the city commission might be on board, but if the rank and file and the police unions that you have to negotiate with are not on board with that, can make that change very difficult. And I'm just wondering if you had any take about how that's going and how that's received throughout the department as he sets the leadership and the standard for how the community is to be policed.
Yeah, good question. So the police department, you have almost 300 officers, and you have several unions, and certainly we need the cooperation, collaboration, support of the employees in the department, but you have one chief. You have one chief who is responsible for setting the direction and the tone of the department. And as far as the chief's leadership priorities, once he sets that direction and tone, everyone is expected to line up with it and support it. And anyone who does not support it cannot continue to be successful in that department and should not continue to be part of that department. So I am holding the chief accountable for setting the right tone and expectations, and he's holding his leadership in this department accountable, and so on and so forth. And so I can't speak to what unions will do, but I can speak to what the chief needs to do and what I expect him to do.
But it's part of that tap dance as city manager. You have to come to an agreement with the union, and so these things evolve, these conversations evolve. I think as we look at success, like how fast can what we want as equitable change in policing, what's a realistic yard mark for the community to feel different?
Well, I think we need to be careful because the unions are partners in discussing terms and conditions of employment, salaries, benefits. working conditions, et cetera. But the chief sets the policy on use of force.
Okay.
We don't have to negotiate to talk about a use of force policy.
Excellent clarification.
Now there are things related to conduct and misconduct that, in terms of how certain matters are handled in terms of grieved and appeal based on policy, those things are negotiable. But it is a dance, but what I sense in this community, in the country, ever since the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and many, many others, is that there is an awakening of a new reality that things have to change and improve. And so more so in other cities where the senseless murders are occurring. And our experience here in Grand Rapids has been, we've had issues with police and use of force and complaints by members of the community, but what we have not had is a unjustified homicide by a police officer. We hadn't had a fatal shooting in recent years. Let me say that. I'm not saying that's not the history of the department, but in recent years around this disturbance around the country. And so what this department, what our officers and union are feeling, we're feeling not only the pressure from some of the local issues, but we're feeling a lot of the pressure given some of the reform and changes that are going on in other communities. So the whole 8 That Can't Wait initiative that started around more de-escalation and no-knock warrants and a lot of those other issues, those started based on issues that were happening in other communities. And I think we're willing to embrace that kind of change as well, but there also are other local things that we need to begin the process of change. And I think in this community, the things that have been specific has been about the appeal board and making sure the Citizens Appeal Board has a level of oversight of disciplinary actions to make sure that if the chief holds someone accountable and they appeal, that they get good due process, but that the appeals board, the Citizens Appeals Board, can feel like they have enough information, transparency, and authority to make their decisions, or recommendations rather. The other things is on the oversight office that we created to make sure that the things that happen within the police department, because there's a lot of mistrust, particularly around some of the labor issues, that we can give the citizens more insight and oversight on what happens on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you for that. We don't have a lot of time. I'm not sure if someone can give me a signal how much time we have left, but I do want to get to the point of right now the level of diversity in the city in terms of leadership roles is as high as I've ever remembered.
Right.
We have you're the first black city manager. We have the first black police chief, first black city attorney in Anita Hitchcock. We have Brandon Davis in accountability, first female mayor. And as far as I know, in my memory, the most diverse city commission that I, just as a looking at it, it's as fair representation of the community as we've had in a long, long time. And you being newer to this area, I think this is a refreshing time. It's a time that even though we have tremendous pressure, that it's a very positive time in our city under your new leadership. And there are opportunities to make some serious progress here because we have people representing us from parts of the community and backgrounds that we've never had before in this context of this time and these pressures. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because what we're seeing is the gates are still there, but the gatekeepers are changing. And not only do one of the other areas are in our economic development, because it's not just criminal injustice, it's economic injustice and educational injustice, et cetera. And so in economic development, we've hired the first Latinx economic development director, Mr. Gracia. And so there's a lot of opportunity to bring diverse perspectives. Now, just having organizational diversity is not enough because, you know, we expect people not only to look and reflect the community, but also to make decisions that increase better outcomes. And so just being in the seat's not good enough. You gotta be able to make a difference.
And I forgot to underscore in my lead-in question, is that if anyone in the community feels that there isn't racial inequality, I just listed 5 or 6 firsts in our
Right.
community.
Right.
How is this happening? We're 170 years old. We're still experiencing the first this, the first that. We can look back at our community from where I'm at as a white man and say, we're still having firsts because there was tremendous systems in place that excluded people, and we're at a point where that tide is changing. I think if I could make a personal note, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
There is this kind of there's kind of moral justification when you elect somebody like, or there's a setting aside of if people don't think they're racist, but they voted for Obama, or they can point to that we have Maryland or Rosalind Bliss as our mayor and you as our city mayor, and there's no problem here. We have people in leadership from different
Right.
parts of the community. There's also, they can point very simply to upholding some of the same systems that have suppressed the community. And that is an odd sort of place to be in terms of where we have this progression, but we also have tremendous pushback in certain areas that keep social justice from moving forward at a pace that I feel personally is too slow.
Right.
And I don't know if you want to plus onto that one or not,
No.
but I just think like
Yeah.
there's that trade, that
No,
transaction.
this is a good point. So the first is a first step. How about that? So whenever we have people who are trailblazers, who break glass ceilings, who obviously stand on the shoulders of other people, and they're the first this, first Latinx commissioner, first African American commissioner, first female, first whatever. That's a first step. Now we can't, and what we can't do is we can celebrate it for that moment, but then the people who are in those positions have a tremendous responsibility to take the next steps. And so making sure that the first is not the first and only, and that what you do when you're the first is a tremendous responsibility.
Yes.
Because now you have all the pressure from the years of the system that held people back. Oftentimes people who are the first don't have a long window, a lot of time to do it, even with the first African-American president, but the expectation and pressures are tremendous. And so we need to make sure when we have those people in those places that are gatekeepers, because what I've seen in Austin, we had the same thing that happened. Lots of historic appointments, and the system was changing. And when change started to happen, that first was the last one for a long time. And people wish they had the opportunity to collaborate with people while they were in seat when they had the moment. So we got to seize the moment. Secondly, when we have these the people that are the first, I think they all, and I know many of them that I get to work with either in the elected realm or the appointed, they feel a tremendous amount of duty, and but they also feel a tremendous amount of pressure and failure because they take the successes and celebrate, but they take the challenges and when they're not able to move the needle very personally. And I think when people who are not the first, when you're just part of the system, you don't care if the system fails or not, because that's just the way. I can't say I don't want to be stereotypical, but that's just the way it is. But when you're in that position, you feel like, no, I'm here to make sure that it will not always be the way it was.
Well, I think that's a good point to wrap on. It's a huge challenge you have before you, and us as a community, I think we also put too much on the police department to fix things, on city management to fix things. We can create our better neighborhoods, my own neighborhood. Everyone's neighborhood can come together. I think Commissioner Jones was talking about actually creating an environment and investment into communities where policing is needed at a much smaller scale. And that starts with organizationally, educationally, job opportunities, all kinds of business opportunities, grant programs, catalyst programs that need to filter outside of this 1 mile radius that we sit in right now, where there's been a tremendous amount of investment in the downtown city core, but ironically, just in some other wards, fractions of any investment. So I hope that was fun, not too challenging. I think Daryl would agree you kept it real, and I appreciate that. At some point.
Do we have time for a couple of comments or questions from the audience?
That'd be great.
Can we do that?
Yeah. If you're willing. Yeah?
No?
Go ahead. Yeah.
How will we get, is there a mic that? Mic out. You got media want to ask question, audience wants to ask question?
Good deal. She's got it now.
Hey, so one thing I wanted to hear your opinion on, I mean, obviously we know everything that happened with the protests and riots here. So one area of concern that I had is how we are addressing these issues in the community, specifically with the youth. Yeah. So what I had observed was a lot of like youth that were involved in like the destruction of property, and my concern was like, we're here talking about all these like progressive race issues, right? But you have a lot of young, poor black kids that are now facing like big charges as a result of, you know, that specific event. So I kind of want to probe your brain on where's your stance in like youth community development, and what resources are you willing to commit to the youth in Grand Rapids so that we can actually maintain some of this progress with our future generations?
Very good question. So I think I'll talk systemically and then I'll talk personally. So I think the connections that we have to make with the youth need to happen much earlier. And we need to make sure, using this theme, the bridges that we have, that we continue to bridge them through the school system to community college to college. And so the Promise Zone that was recently approved, that allows every graduate of a Grand Rapids high school to get, you know, at least 2 years of free academic education, is a bridge to a better opportunity. And even going to school is not good enough. We need to bridge them to employment, to your other point. And so, and even in the police department, one of the things we didn't talk about is the lack of diversity in the police department, and making sure that we hire local people who understand this community, who live in this city, who's not who respects the history of the city from their own lived experience, and bridging them through that. So you're exactly right. We need to continue to do that. Now that's long term. This summer, right after the unrest that we had, we launched this initiative to hire 1,000 kids for the summer, 1,000 youth from 15 to 21. We ended up getting over 1,000 to apply, but because of, you know, kids, some of them don't want to just sit in front of, with the economy and the pandemic, didn't want to just sit in front of their computer all day and telework like other working adults. We ended up getting a little less than half that number. So I want to continue to push that program and making sure that it is not just a summer program, but it's a applied learning program, that we're able to, whatever those kids are, that we're able to connect with them throughout the year, connect with them through high school, and even get them employment experiences through college. In terms of organizing the youth, you're exactly right. I think the chief and his community advisory panel has a youth representative on it. That's that's sharing a loud voice in terms of the concerns. And I think the youth representatives from the NAACP, and there may be others, but we need to do better organizing and engagement with the youth in the future to make sure that we continue to provide pathways. And then the way that we do it now with all the digital experience and social media is something that we need people to inform us on the best way to connect in this new age. And so I agree with you wholeheartedly. Those are some of the things that we're doing, but there's much more to be done. And then the last, I would say, is in terms of our parks department. There are many models for park management. Some people, some cities use parks as just nice amenities for neighborhoods. You have other cities that use park experiences for economic development. You'll have retail connected to it, and you have other cities that really focus on youth engagement and programming in the park system. And I think we have an opportunity to really improve in that area, but do it also from not just a recreational aspect, but also from an employment or economic development, and employ youth in the very system that's taking care of youth, so youth see other youth doing something positive.
Great, thanks for your question. Derek?
I was just wondering, what specifically, when you were looking, because in one sense, we were interviewing for a city manager, but on another end, you had to accept the job. So what specifically attracted you to managing the city of Grand Rapids?
Well, I wanted to go to a full service city. First of all, I was assistant city manager. And then being in a profession, I wanted to be city manager. And there are all types of cities that you could, in this profession, attempt to manage. There are some that you really only have to come and turn the lights on, and the city just takes care of itself, and those are bedroom communities. They're suburban communities. The only thing they have is a lot of residential. There may be a little retail, but they don't have urban problems. They are suburban communities, and they pay people. The biggest problem is to patch a pothole, take care of the street, and that's not the kind of city I wanted. I wanted to come to a city where I would be able to be challenged by all the urban issues that I faced growing up, that I saw in Austin, and be able to make a difference, and a city where I would be able to come to work and bring my whole self. So I don't have to just show up like I look on paper or on a resume, but I can come and share from my own lived experience and manage in a way that's authentic. If I'm going to do this job, I gotta be myself in doing it. And so I felt when I came to Grand Rapids, first of all, there's a lots of potential in Grand Rapids because there's a lot of similarity between some of the things that are going on both positively as well as challenges with Austin. And I felt that background that I had, that experience, but I felt like I could come here and be me and do this job and not just be the city manager. And so I felt that our commission was pretty progressive. It's the most diverse body of leadership that's been in the city. It's more diverse than any city that I've worked in. This is the third city. It's more diverse than Austin, the elected officials, as well as when I worked in Fort Worth. So all of that was promising in coming to Grand Rapids.
Fantastic. Paul, I think maybe we should wrap it up. Mark, I just want to thank you for being a guest. At some point, I'd love to have you on the real official Full Exposure podcast. You'd come to my studio, we'd do a portrait, and then we'd drill in and even a little bit deeper into some of these things. I'm fascinated with your background. Did not know all those things. Yeah. And it's exciting to see that to shape your perspective as the leader of the city, that the environment that you came through growing up has shaped where you're at now as a leader, and you're proud of that background, and it's a huge asset to understanding how a city like this can improve. So thank you very much. Let's give it up for Mark Washington. Thank you very much.
Right.
We are.
All right. Yeah, I think
you,
you just
sir.
said it in the seat or there. Thank you, Mark. Yeah. Thank you, Brian. And it looks like we got some protesters organizing a couple 100 yards away, so we get a chance to see tonight how things are being implemented in the city.
So what'd you think about Mark knowing Bun B?
I had no idea.
What's your favorite UGK song?
Look, you know I can't answer this.
All right.
Why must you taunt me in front of...
Race, place, opportunities. We need to keep it moving.
Okay.
Next up is a very exciting panel for two things. I think they represent a voice that needs to be heard.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm doing the wrong panel. I'm introducing the next panel. We got Diatribe coming back up.
Tease it out, though.
So we're gonna go right from Diatribe to our Latina panel. I think everybody agrees more than ever we need female leadership. I think the years of men running things has got us to where we're at. So to hear a different perspective is going to be real refreshing this afternoon.
Yeah.
And we have some of the hottest minds and brightest minds in the Latina community coming up.
Yeah.
But first we have
Kid Kane. Erica Kid Kane Thompson is a self-taught, multidisciplined visual artist, poet, and most importantly, a beacon of peace, love. Born and raised on Grand Rapids Southeast Side, for Kid, creativity has been a source of joy, an origin for clarity, and a means for survival. Through childhood trauma, adulthood pain, and everything in between, each creation allows her to fill holes, to feel whole, to feel real, and to connect with others. Kid uses self-expression to generate social dialogue about the good and the bad of human experience by exploring themes such as poverty, privilege, gentrification, resilience, and identity through community conversation, poem, installation, video, and photography. She believes that her art has the power to generate vibrations that inspire, heal, challenge, affirm, and provoke. She's grateful for the opportunity to live a life filled with passion and purpose. Welcome to the outdoor, COVID-free video production studio, Kid Kane.
Peace and love. I'm really happy to be here today and grateful for this conversation. I will set the intention for things to continue beyond this dialogue. Well, this is crazy. However, I set the intention that change continues beyond the conversation. So often we're in spaces to where we can talk about things that need to happen and we don't actually see things happening or see things changing. And so I set the intention for continued change. We're living in difficult times in general, but then we also have the added layer of COVID that's put us in a position to just be experiencing this life a lot different and a lot more difficult. So many of the people in my lives, I did grow up on the southeast side of Grand Rapids, and my experiences have been rooted in a lot of systems that are substandard. The education system, our criminal justice system, the ways that our community is policed. Poverty is just a huge problem, not having access to jobs that put us in a position to thrive instead of just being in this like survival mode. And so often prices rise. We're living through pains and stressful working wage. As minds can't notice hopeless miracles bring stress, there's less life left. Imagine empty children past meals that power wills, never able to afford smiles, risking absence every day. Thoughts drowned as the uncertain faces inability in neighborhoods burdened by no balance and hopeless handouts. Think about consciousness. This common catastrophe between Americans insecure, working below existence, we should all challenge our privileges. It's so important for us to consider ways that we can challenge ourselves and put ourselves in position to look inward to find out how we can change in order to allow other people to live better lives. When you start popping those bubbles of privilege and you have the level of self-awareness to find out where you stand in the community where you live, where you stand in your home, where you stand in the workplace, that awareness allows you to see things differently, allows you to have compassion, empathy, allows you to check yourself and check your privileges so that things can be affected through policy, through laws, through just the way that we move and navigate through everyday life. So often, this is really powerful to have this happening over here, but it is also very distracting. So often, they hand out lemons for aid. They poison the water. They make sugar illegal. They ban the swizzle stick and make the pitcher unaffordable. The setup is deplorable, but they expect us to make lemonade. Have you ever made a way out of no way? Ever had to make something out of nothing when nothing seems possible? Ever nothing gets easier? Ever wondered what it feels like to be vulnerable? Have you ever felt completely free from those frequent, fearful frequencies, free lemons, poison, lemonade? Lemonade, legal aid, lemonade systems, those lemonade cops, they still get paid, and those paid lemonade cops kill, but we still have to manage to pay those bills. We stress about bills. Bills will be the death of us because poverty kills. It kills those with high top fades. Kills those with lemonade braids too many tears shed. Too many high top fades and lemonade braids dead. I say we dead the bull, the privilege, pillaging pilgrims, privileged colonizers, gentrifiers. We all know that gentrifiers are colonizers, and they displace us and then give the hood a facelift. They displace us, then deny the struggles that we are faced with pride, patriotism, arrogance, and ignorance. Ignorance is mistaken for innocence, but I say ignorance is no excuse. Don't just excuse our barbecue spots, our car washes, our beauty shops, the houses that housed us for highways and parking lots of yoga studios, breweries, and juice. Lots of privilege has our livelihood in the noose. Noose too tight. Noose keeps getting tighter. Tighter budgets make us less like lovers. Tighter budgets make us more like fighters. Fighters that take blow after blow after blow. Fighters that make a way out of no way. So I say, way to go. Way to be a warrior. Way to make something out of nothing when nothing seems possible. You remember that it is. When nothing seems to get easier, you remember that it has. Has anyone ever complimented you on your resilience? Has anyone ever complimented you on your strength? See, strength isn't defined by our resources. It's knowing what struggle feels like and having the power to make the impossible possible in this life. They hand us lemons. But what if the water is poison and you can't make lemonade? You know that this life is all about networks. So you put some things together to make some trades, and you trade some lemons for butter. Trade butter for sugar. Trade a bit of sugar for a few eggs, and then a good friend just so happens to gift you flour and some fresh baked bread. And even though you're tired, even though you're dead tired, you put everything together to make a way. You know that way that you always seem to make, so no, you can't make lemonade. Because the water is poison like so many other things around you. You begin to panic, then suddenly sweet memories of your childhood surround you, and you say, no, I can't make lemonade, but I can bake. I can bake a lemon butter pound cake just like the one that my grandmother used to make, just like the one that her grandmother used to make. When this life hands us lemons, it's so bittersweet, but I compliment you on your strength if you're going through it. I compliment you on your resilience. Way to go. Way to make a way out of no way when nothing seems possible. Thank you. And considering that piece, that poem, Lemonade, and using that term lemon to talk about substandard and insufficient systems, my great-grandparents came to Grand Rapids. They were one of the first black families to live on Lafayette. They experienced redlining. They experienced white flight. They experienced all of the jobs and the resources being taken out of 49507. And being in a position to still reside and live in that area, so many of the things that they're experiencing are still a reflection of what I experience today. It's really interesting. I went through a time and a space where I couldn't even afford to live in 49507. I was looking for a place to rent, and I could not rent in my neighborhood. Not because I couldn't afford it all the time, sometimes because they wouldn't approve my application for so many different reasons. For me being a woman, for me being black, for me being queer, for me not fitting the description of what they thought the tenant that they would like to have in that space would be. And so I do set intentions for things to continuously change, for spaces to continually open up for Black and brown people in the neighborhoods that we're accustomed to living in. I wrote a poem in 2014. I hear like a Black Lives Matter rally happening over there. And at the time that I wrote this poem, it was like so much was happening and nothing stopped happening. But I haven't said this poem in a very long time, but it's very interesting that 6 years later, it's still just very relevant. They want us to be conscious to nonsense, but blind to truth. So they brainwash us with bull so that our past is overlooked. It's time now we wake up. It's time now we break up with their rule of law that's been designed to make our very existence a fatal flaw. So I say to you all, awaken. We've been asleep and slept on for far too long. Stripped of who we were so we can't understand who we are, misguided and misled so sadly. So many of us don't make it very far. We don't have to be who they say or made us believe that we are. You know, thugs, criminals, niggas, hoes, bitches. Our people were once kings, queens, spiritual beings with riches far greater than the almighty dollar. Yeah, we scream, fight, and holler with our own over just that, money. And it's funny because we don't do it to gain assets. We do it to buy designer fashions and help major corporations cash fat checks. But despite our own ignorance, we are not the only ones to blame. They like to make it seem as if how we live and the decisions that we make are a choice when all the while they set us up to fail, kill us, beat us, throw us in jail, and turn a blind eye, of course. They took our people, our culture, our names, our land, and our voice and replaced it with shame, pain, struggle, using systematic tactics and brutal force. Plagued our communities with HIV, AIDS, heroin, crack cocaine, gave our sons guns, then blame us and shame us for all of those slain. Many of us never stood a chance. Horrible education, shitty living situation, misrepresentation, the growth of the Black race has never been an obligation to our nation. Dying to throw us in prison or send us to an early grave, they've gotten rid of plantations, but many of us are still slaves. Slaves to addiction. Slaves to materialism, slaves to ignorance, slaves to prison, slaves to false religion. They want us to be conscious to nonsense, but blind to truth. So they brainwash us with bull so that our past is overlooked. It's time now we wake up. It's time now we break up with their rule of law that's been designed to make our very existence a fatal flaw. So I say to y'all, awaken. They've taken way too much from our people and we've allowed it. So it's time to infiltrate the system, remove the divide and increase the knowledge of our history so that we are able to grow, unite, and conquer. Please make it make sense and stop living like the struggle of Blacks in this country is in the past tense, asking questions like, is racism, privilege, white supremacy, does it still exist? Is it still a problem? What kind of question is this? Is the sky blue? Don't continue to live their lie, find you, so you'll never have to hesitate when they ask, who are you? Who are you in the city of Grand Rapids? Where do you stand? Where does the city stand? Do they stand in opposition of you or do they stand with you? Are there systems in opposition of you or are they in support of you? And so I am grateful for this conversation, for this place, for this space, for the things that are happening. And again, I set intentions for change to occur and for it to occur for all lives. Everybody should be able to have equity. Everybody should be able to have opportunity. Everybody should have the resources in order to overcome obstacles. So in true kid fashion, when I say peace and love, if y'all can shout back love and peace, peace and love, peace and love, peace and love. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.
We cannot talk about justice without saying her name. So please take a moment, look behind you. Yeah. Let's give a second for Breonna Taylor, everybody.
Yeah. You want me to be with you guys or what? I can run up.
All right. Let's give it up for Kid Kane again.
Yeah.
Born and raised in Grand Rapids, Southeast Side.
And I mean, I know that when you're speaking and recording, you want the audio probably to be clean and quiet, but I thought Kid, I felt like the energy was only magnifying Kid in that. So I want to thank Kid for sticking it out and riding that wave. That was great.
Always. Without hesitation.
We got 5 rockstar women. We're gonna cut to it. These are all Latina civic leaders in Grand Rapids. They have a range of expertise from working in workforce development, working with creatives and entrepreneurs, ensuring equitable space making and health equity. Mercedes will be moderating behind me here. And Lorena, Crystal, Celeste. Noemi. That was you.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right. I'll cross the green line.
But we'll pass it over to Mercedes, and you
take it from there.
You roll with it.
Sounds good. Is my mic on? It is on? Okay, great. They said we wasn't supposed to be able to hear ourselves, so. Hello, everybody. My name is Mercedes Barragan. I'm so happy to be amongst these amazing Latina women. Oh, we're good? All right. I'm so excited to be here among these amazing Latina women. And I just want to say, when we were approached to have a conversation about Latina women in Grand Rapids, the challenges, the opportunities, the successes, I really felt like those conversations have already been had. And we're kind of tired having them. We've shared our challenges. We've shared our opportunities. We just need people to take action. We need Black women. We need Latina women in power. In powers of position, making law, making policy, and we have it now, but we need more. So today's conversation, we're not gonna sit here and talk about all the challenges we have, but we want everyone to know that the Latina community is not a monolith, and that we all have journeys, we all have our own thoughts and our own feelings, and we all are just here trying to create a more equitable community and a more equitable Grand Rapids. So this is really just a conversation. I'm not gonna be asking a whole lot of questions because all of these amazing women have beautiful stories. So I'm just gonna go around. Maybe I'll just start with Celeste. Introduce yourself. And I do have one question, let me take it back. I do have one question for all of them that they have prepared an answer to. So, but for right now, let's go around and introduce ourselves.
So hi everyone, I'm Celeste Sanchez Lloyd, or Celeste Sanchez Lloyd, and I'm excited about being here. My area that you heard earlier is around health equity and as it relates to the community in Kent County.
Thank you.
I'm Noemi. I am 21. And I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know where life is taking me, but I'm here for the ride.
Hi everyone, thank you. I am excited to be here sharing the stage with all these fabulous Latinas. My name is Lorena Aguayo Marquez, and I have lived in Grand Rapids for over 20 years. I came here for college, and that was a shock, coming to West Michigan. Nice culture from Chicago. Still adjusting to that 20 years later, but I do education, workforce development. I'm a community advocate, activist, civic engagement. That's what I do. Making sure that we are being heard, right? The unjust are being heard.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcel, and I'm first-generation American, Cuban American. I have lived in Grand Rapids for 20 years now, after relocating from Florida. I, like Celeste, also share in the health equity space. And I'm really happy to be here sharing my perspective. Shout out to my boss who's here supporting me.
Beautiful. I love it. So, oh, thank you. So the question that all of these amazing ladies had to think about over the last couple days is I asked them, who are your people? And they kind of took that and ran with it. So I want to start off with Celeste. I don't know, I got her just as she was trying to fix her mask. But Celeste, talk to me. Who are your people?
Yeah, so I identify as Afro-Latina, first-generation Dominican American. And it took me a while to get to that place. I will say that my household was a Dominican family. We were a bachata, merengue family. That's what we were doing. We were eating plátanos. And so outside of that, I knew nothing except I was Dominican by culture. It wasn't until I got really older and I recognized who truly my people were. So I had historically lived on this nice, beautiful facade of my people being my great-grandmother, who was 100% Spaniard, my mother being referenced to as India, and I never heard about my other people. And it wasn't until I started to explore truly who I am, I realized that I am my people, and my people are the enslaved Africans, the Taino Indian, and the colonizing Spaniards. Those are my people. And I've always been only given opportunity to give only 30 or 75% of who I am to community, right? And to be able to explain. So now as an adult, I realize that as an Afro-Latina, I can't, and it's not safe for me to stay in spaces where I only talk about my Latina experience. I have shared experience with Black women. And for a long time, I didn't get that opportunity to tell people that story. I would have to go under this auspice of that was my Latina experience. And so now also raising 3 bicultural children who are going to have to share their Black and Latina story, I have to be able to represent where there are no spaces for us, right? So being able to make space and realize when I sit in a room, I can't check 2 boxes off. I can't be the Black woman and I can't be the Latina woman. So my people are making spaces for Black women, right? And so being able to say, all right, I'm here for the Latina voice, but where's the individuals who's gonna sit here for the Black voice, right? And so when I think of like the Breonna Taylors, and I think of, all of these injustices are happening, I have to also think of the immigration situations we have, right? And Lorena will talk more about that. And be able to move fluidly through those conversations and making space and supporting. So that question of who are my people, it's Black voices, it's Latina voices, and it's indigenous voices. It's those people that often feel vulnerable and that are disenfranchised and are sitting in communities where we know that the injustices are happening, right? We've been hearing it. We've seen examples of it. And so being able to represent and being able to identify where my privilege lies and where my privilege doesn't lie. So that's, for me, that's my people.
I love that, Celeste. Thank you. Okay. Look. Can you hear me? You can hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Okay.
No, not me. Can you hear me? ¿Me escuchan?
Okay.
Can you hear me? All right. So keep the mic up high. Keep it right here? Okay. Thank you, Celeste, so much for sharing. And I promise I want to get into the other stories as well, but I have to pause because, Celeste, I want to ask you a question about the intersectionality of your identity. And so, like, how is it that you come into spaces? Like, how do you help people understand that you are more than a Latina, you are more than what's on the surface, you are more than a Black woman and indigenous? Like, how do you bring all of these parts of your identity into spaces to create spaces for other women?
Yeah, I think it's just having intentional conversations, right? Like being able to tell people, if you added me just for the convenience, right? Like intentionality is the big part, right? I'm looking for that. So when I'm asking questions, right, and I'm really kind of just picking at people and saying, the reason I'm here is because of who I am, right? Who my family is. But how do we support other people? So we always talk about allies. We talk about allies. And I keep saying, I don't need allies. I need an accomplice. I need somebody who's going to be in the trenches with me when things are getting hard, when I'm not there, when there's, they're at spaces that I'm not available to. I need them to be an accomplice. And so that's what my role is when I look at spaces where I am the only. How am I making sure that I am somebody else's accomplice? So being very intentional about saying, I can't join this, I can't support this event, or I can't speak at your event, or whatever the case may be, unless there is true representation of the people you're trying to help or assist, right? And so that's kind of my questions geared to them. I hope I answered that right.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's no wrong answer. It's no wrong answer for us. These are our stories and our thoughts, and they asked us to come up here together to talk about how can we make Grand Rapids a more equitable place, a more inclusive space for Latina. And what I love about this group is we're not just asking about the Latina, right? But we're looking at all women of color, women who are LGBT, like everybody, right? We're trying to create spaces for more than just Latina women.
And I think to add to that, we as a Latina community also suffer really bad from colorism, right? And so within our own colorism, we're trying to figure out where to make those spaces. Mm-hmm. And so the call to action really is for those Latinas who tend to benefit from the dominant culture due to their skin tone, how do you make spaces for other individuals that may not be on that same spectrum?
Yeah. Yes. I remember growing up and hearing stories like my tias would say to my sister and I, don't spend too much time in Mija, quítate del sol, te vas a poner negrita. And it was a bad thing. And when I hear stories from some of my other Latina sisters who take a lot of pride in their European background, right, their Spanish background, and don't acknowledge the Blackness in them. And so that's something within the Latina community that we're still struggle with, right? And so when we talk about how do we create space for other women, there are things in our own community that we're still working through. I'm not even gonna lie, that's really hard to explain to white people sometimes. I'm just gonna keep it real. It's really hard to explain some of those complexities, and not even complexities, right, but intersection of identities, because we are not a monolith. So thank you, Celeste. You touched on immigration a little bit, and I wanna pose a question to my friend Lorena. She got a shirt on today. I don't know if y'all can see it. It's dope. What does it say, Lorena?
I'm an immigrant.
Awesome.
I'm proud of it.
I love it. So Lorena, talk to me. Who are your people?
So who are my people? So I was born in Mexico, and when this question came to us, I had to think about it because it's one of the things I've struggled with who I am, right? It wasn't until I realized that if it wasn't for 1986, that's an important year with amnesty, I would have still be undocumented. My parents brought me here when I was a baby, and all I known had been growing up in Chicago, being raised in Chicago. And I had been using my privilege, right, my citizenship, to give voice to others. So when we're asking who are my people, anyone who has been in a situation they're unjust, right? It just happens that I am, what I advocate is education equity, right? Making sure that Black and brown or disenfranchised students have opportunity to learn, but also in the workforce, right? When we talk about, we posted this in the Latina Network, how in California, it just came out studied how Latinas are making less money. And we have known this, right? Here in West Michigan, Latinas make 58 cents. But it's the language they use, right? They use the pay gap, but it's actually exploitation of females. Let's call it what it is, exploitation of females, exploitation of Black and brown people. And that's where one unjust intersects with the other injustice, right? When we're talking Black Lives Matter. We just right here, they're protesting Black Lives Matter, right? And we took a second, but we also need to call an action and making sure that we advocate and change those policies and make sure that people that are dying, either in prisons or in the concentration camps in the border all over the states, we take them out because they've been there unjust. So that's what, those are my people. Also, I purposely brought my, this is a reminder of my indigenous roots, right? There's a lot of missing indigenous women and girls, but also intersects with a lot of missing Latinas, immigrants that are coming, crossing Latin America to be here in the United States. They are abused, they are raped. And those are my people. Anyone who has been unjust.
Thank you, Lorena.
You're welcome.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I have to go back because I think I shared this with you all on the call that we had a couple nights ago. And I was asked this question. It said, Mercedes, who are your people? And I was ready to talk about how, like, my dad came over from Mexico when he was 16, not knowing any English. I was ready to talk about my grandparents born in Mexico, my mom being raised here in the United States. And I lovingly like to say, like, my dad's side is, like, straight off the boat Mexican, like, no English. And my mom's side is, like, this Spanglish mix of, like, Tex-Mex. And that week that I was asked that question, Breonna Taylor's murderers were not brought to justice. They got off easy. And I remember the weight of that. And then I remember at some point that week as well, a whistleblower, maybe it was even a couple of days before that, came out and talked about the women in concentration camps in Georgia. Doctors there were performing hysterectomies on them without their knowledge. That is genocide. That is genocide. When you take out the reproductive organs of a woman, you completely disable her. Like, she cannot have children. Like, that's genocide. And the weight of all that hit me so hard that when they came back to ask me, Meche, I say Meche, Mercedes, Meche, who are your people? I was like, Breonna Taylor, my people. All those women in that camp are my people. George Floyd are my people. I cannot just say my people are confined to just my blood relatives, because for me, by some luck and the grace of God, I'm not in a cage right now, because my dad came in a time period where, I'm not going to say it wasn't happening, because it probably was happening, but the point is that my dad was able to come here and build a life, and that's all other people are trying to do. So, Lorena, I love your story, and I love how you include everyone as part of your people. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. What else you want to tell us about your people, Lorena?
My people. I don't know if I missed something, but no, we're talking about immigration, right? Right now, my people, I'm here in Michigan. The people in Michigan are my people. I've been working for driver's license for all, right, here in the state of Michigan. And they haven't, they know what we need. We have told them, but they don't really want to acknowledge and give us what we're asking, right? We're asking for dignity and respect. And they're not giving us what we need to do the basic thing, even to drive here, right? To listen to conversations like this. They don't have the freedom to come and do things like that, being able to be out here. And then with COVID hit, even that, the immigrant undocumented community is suffering a lot right now. And they're still not listening to us. Politicians are not listening to us. The lawmakers, they're not listening to us. Here in Grand Rapids, right? Black Lives Matter, Beyond, we want to defund the police, right? They're not listening to the need of the community. The community has come out, but they're not listening. So when it comes to that, my people, I'll be out here protesting, right? But I know that we need to advocate as a one voice. Come out and continue doing the injustice, right? We want equity. Grand Rapids keeps talking about welcoming immigrants, and a couple of weeks ago, they pulled a wall that says, welcome all, block and a half from the immigration office. I don't know about you, but that's not very welcoming to me. So those are things that they don't notice. They might have great intentions, but they don't know the implications they have with that. So they really need to really be thoughtful of the way they do that, right? Not just let's do it to have something, but listen to the people. The people know what they need. Don't tell us what we need or how to do it. We know how to do it. So that's it.
That's it. Put us in power. That's all we need. Just give it to us. Don't ask us about our qualifications and experience. Just do it. Just do it. So I want to turn it over to Noemi. And so I want to share something. So we were all on a call kind of talking about what are we going to talk about? What are we getting ready to tell people on Saturday? And so we had never met Noemi before. She was real quiet, kind of shy. And we're like, girl, what you got to say? Like, you need to say something. Like, what do you do? Where are you at? Like, what do you want to do? What are your passions? And what I love about her spirit is that she just came into the group. So Crystal, Lorena, myself, and Celeste have all been knowing each other for several years. And we're part of the Latina Network. And I just want to put in a shameless plug. Part of the Latina Network is our ability to bring people in and shine on them and raise them up. It is such a beautiful community. So right away, we start firing questions like, what do you want to do? Who do we know in banking? We got to introduce you to this person, And it's such an inclusive, beautiful group. So within 5 minutes, we went from not knowing Noemi to, I feel like a little sister. Like a little sister, that we're bringing her into the group, and now you're part of our group, you're part of our network. Our people are your people. And so, Noemi, I'm just really excited to hear more about your story. And so talk to me, who are your people?
I guess my people are all those kids who were brought here by their parents without any resources. I was brought here when I was 1. And as a DACA recipient, I didn't know what that even meant until I was about 14, where my dream career was to be the president, right? And then you find out that there is no guarantee you can go to college. And even within that area, I went to a predominantly Hispanic middle school, and no one knew how to help me. There were no resources for me. So you have this whole life of just constantly outshining everybody because you have to be the best, but you don't know why. And I did a lot of advocating for the DACA, when it was the Dreamers Act at first. And I had some teachers who didn't even know what it meant and whether or not we deserved their tax dollars. And I just remember printing out a stack of files of everything that it meant and all the actual facts that the DREAM Act meant. And I met with Governor Amash, or whoever he is, senator, and I remember telling him my story and just crying, telling him, please, if you have any way of giving, a second thought to this. And he was like, I listened to you, but I honestly don't care, is what I got from him. So I did it all. I did community outreach in high school. I did an EMT program because I thought that was going to get me better scholarships, better everything. And it never felt like I was enough. And all my people are those kids who don't have enough resources and they don't have anybody to point them the right way, because there are a lot of us, but not enough. We're too scared to show who we are. And I'm kind of tired of being scared of that. Those are my people.
Y'all, yes. Can we clap for Noemi? Y'all, not yeah, like you all, right? Like, but like people need to feel the weight of that living in constant fear, inhibiting yourself. Can you imagine what will happen to people when they are unchained, uninhibited, like uninterrupted? The leaders that we're missing out on, the perspective, the change, like just all the power that we miss out on when we keep interrupting people or keep blocking people. Like, you know what I mean? I just thank you so much for being brave to share your story like out on a stage. That's so brave.
Thank you.
Like this is do we have like leaders, like we need to connect her into community, connect her with people. Like this is our future leader, y'all. This girl right here. Future leaders. Anything else you want to share, Noemi, about your people? You got a platform. You can say whatever you want. You got the mic.
I do got the mic. I don't know. I'm still trying to find my people. Working yourself to death to have these opportunities makes you isolated. Like, people were too intimidated, and I had to make myself small for a long time to people to make me feel like I was approachable. Like, yes, I'm ambitious, but I'm also human. So it's like I'm still finding my people. Has been lonely at times. And I said I wasn't going to cry, but I'm also an emotional person. So those are my people, too.
That's okay. That's okay.
And yeah, I just want more. I don't know what I want. I just know that there has to be more than just going to a 9-to-5 bank job every single day. And putting up with these people who don't know my story, that they don't know what I've done. I did Art Prize 2 years. We won a prize, but no one, it's like people know, but they're like, oh, that's cool, but they don't know what I had to do, what it meant to me. And I just want people, I want to find my actual people.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Like, can we give Noemi a round of applause, please? This girl, I think you're a future senator, president, like governor, like what you want to be, girl. We need to get you connected because you need to lead people. You're gonna lead people. I'm gonna just put that out in the atmosphere. You're gonna lead people. You're gonna lead people. So, last but certainly not least, my friend Crystal. I enjoyed our conversation the other night in preparing for this, and I just think you're such a beautiful individual. I just love your spirit. And so I'm excited to hear more about who your people are. Talk to us, Crystal.
Yeah, so storytelling is big in our community, so I'm going to practice that because I think that I've shifted my language a little bit to fit into dominant culture. So go along with me with this story. So who are my people? If you haven't met Shannon Cohen, you're missing out. Google it right now. Google her right now. One of the things that she often talks about is superpowers. And in hearing her encourage people and be out in community, I've been thinking about what my superpower is, and I think that cheerleading is one of my superpowers. And so in the spirit of cheerleading, being inclusive, and just being that connector to create a sense of belonging, I would say that my people don't necessarily have a specific physical attribute. My people are what they embody. My people are people who are empathetic, who take action regarding identities to help folks with identities different than their own. My people are those who believe in community. My people are those who feel a sense of responsibility and duty to one another. My people are those who love on each other at all times. My people are those who hold us accountable. My people are those who are resilient, who are brilliant, who have ambition. I hope that you're seeing the common themes of my people and being able to identify them in the ladies that are sitting here in front of you today. My people are revolutionaries. My people are disruptors. My people's contributions outlived them. So in that, I think of those same characteristics and how they're described and shown in my family as well, and in my work and in my community.
I love that. Thank you, Crystal. Can we give a round of applause for Crystal, please? So I was looking at my watch because I want to make sure we good on time. I know we're on a schedule, and I got the thumbs up. Before we wrap up, ladies, I want you all to have the last word. And we have this platform. We're leaders in our community. We are disrupting in our community. What is your call to action today? Or what is just the closing? Maybe let's do like 45 seconds. What do you need people to do? Or what do you need people to know? And whoever ready, go ahead and just say it.
Oh, sure. They're looking at me, so I'll go. So as you know, I'm an activist, community organizer, and one of the things that I have been working on is the driver license campaign, right? We need everyone to take action. Call your state representatives and demand that the bill comes out of the committee. We need you to do that statewide. But also here locally, we need to make sure that our city listens to the people, what we need, right? I come from the 3rd Ward. We need more economic development there. You walk down there, nothing has happened. We need more economic development there. You know, I remember 20 years, downtown wasn't like this. Why couldn't they not invest this kind of money at the 3rd Ward? So that's another call to action. And also, we need to reduce the funding for the police. There's crime going on all the time, so obviously they're not doing anything about it, right? There's shootings, but yeah, the police do not prevent crime. We need programs that prevent crime. So start investing in the 3rd Ward. Spend the money in the 3rd Ward. So those are my call to action. Driver's license for all, right? Investment in the 3rd Ward. And so that's what I want. That's the call to action.
Is my mic? There we go. Awesome. Can we give a round of applause for Lorena, please? Let me hear it out there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, who's next? I'm looking at Celeste now. I'll make her do it.
So yeah, when I think of what's the call to action, right? So I mentioned earlier that my platform, that my professional setting is around health equity. And when I look at, Mercedes mentioned the sterilization of the women that was happening down south, and that's happening right here in Kent County. When we look at infant mortality rates amongst the Black and Latina women in Kent County, they're some of the highest. Not Detroit, not your Flint, not your Saginaw, it's right here in Kent County. And so when we're talking about making space, it's advocating on behalf of Black and Latina women, Indigenous women, to say this is not okay. The treatment of our healthcare system is not okay, and being able to reflect that in the spaces we're in. And so I call on to you guys, when you witness something, you hear a story, or someone tells you something that doesn't sound right, speak up, regardless of what race you are. It's speak up, make space for those voices to be heard. Make those complaints. I'm more than happy to put out my email address that when you hear those complaints, send them through. Because half of the time, the reason why those women don't get recognized is because no one has lifted their voices. And so I really put the group out there to lift voices, make space, don't be an ally, be an accomplice. We have to take the risk, right? Uncomfortable situations lead to progress. And so that's my call to action, is find your uncomfortable space, because more than likely you're gonna be successful.
I love it. Thank you, Celeste. Can we give Celeste a round of applause, please? So much wisdom, so much wisdom. All right, Noemi, I see you got the mic up. Talk to us, girl. What we gotta do? What we gotta do?
I guess we gotta create more safe places for the Hispanic kids who, like there's all these programs like I went to the Art Center, the Cook Art Center. I've been there for most of my life, and that's where I learned to not be scared of my own voice. And I know that there's a lot of kids, Hispanic kids, who don't have that, not fear. You know, they're scared of the uncertainty. All these younger kids who, I mean, look at the world now. Like, it went to hell. Like, I got to graduate high school. My sister didn't. She had to do virtual learning, and it's like, we have to stick up for the kids, because no one else is. No one else is looking out for them, and we're getting compliant with what's going on. We're letting people get away with things that they shouldn't be getting away with, and we're letting this idiot Donald Trump get away with all this shit because we think he's too dumb, but it's not true. He needs to be held accountable a lot more than we have been. We can't just like excuse his bad decision and just awful things as stupidity, because it's not.
Yes, girl. Thank you. Our future, ladies and gentlemen. Nice. Thank you, Naomi. Crystal?
Yeah, I would say that what we need to do is, or the call to action would be to harness a spirit of inquiry, a spirit of inquiry and of global perspective. Oftentimes we are so drawn into our own narrative and our own lived experience that we don't think about the ripple effect. And so similar to what Celeste said, I think the amplification of Black and brown leaders is crucial. I think it helps us, by us having that spirit of inquiry, it helps us to identify the barriers that exist in community that prevent us from living our best lives. We shouldn't be, Black and brown folks shouldn't be in survival mode. We should be in a position where we can thrive and that we have the tools to do so. And I think that having that spirit of inquiry where we're not just taking the status quo or not taking answers of, oh, well, this is the way we've always done it and this is the way it's going to continue. So we need to always operate in the world in a spirit of inquiry, thinking about how these our individual actions and our collective actions shape our community so that we can all have a healthy and good life.
Beautiful. Thank you, Crystal. Folks, can we give a round of applause for Crystal, please? And because I got the mic and I'm going to close it out, I'm going to go ahead and get a call to action as well. 1 month from now, we're going to be making the biggest decision that this country has ever seen. Literally. Like, I cannot tell you how many conversations I have had with people and hearing so many different things like, well, Biden isn't really for us. Like, I don't really like him. Well, the alternative is a psychopath. So if you don't like Biden, but you're going to go for a psychopath, there's a problem for that. I've heard people talk about, I'm going to vote third party. I'm just going to keep it real with y'all. Ain't no third party candidate going to win. It's just not going to happen. I wish it did. I wish we lived in America where everybody had the equal chance. But that's not the reality. So we either going to keep 4 more years of this ridiculousness, of this divisive rhetoric, or we going to make a change. So y'all better make a change next month.
Something to that?
Go ahead, Lorena.
So next month, when we go out there and vote and make a change, also come out, the other action is come out and make them accountable for their actions, regardless of who they are. We need to come out and march, right? And make sure that we are making them accountable for the promises, and we keep what we have, right? And then not only keep, but add more to what we need to have dignity and respect, right? And protection. So,
bam. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. So can I just send out the invitation to Mercedes that I think the Latino Network needs to have its own podcast, and we need to listen to this conversation and more conversations like on a routine basis. Does Star Garden want to be a sponsor?
I mean,
yep. Hey,
yo.
Sure. Yeah, and by the way,
give us the things and we'll do it.
He'll learn, won't he?
Yeah, give us those resources.
Yeah, you don't
and
throw
we
shit
could,
like that out there.
Naomi talked about resources, right?
That's right.
Give us the resources and the power, we get it done.
I like the spirit of inquisitivity. How'd you say it? The spirit of questioning and a global inquiry in a global perspective.
Yeah,
that's good. Again, give it up
Give
for
it up.
our panel.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
And call Paul Moore for more resources.
Thanks, Paul.
And I'll send you to Daryl Ross.
We got you.
Also, anybody who's sitting here that wants a coffee, Soldadera. Beautiful Grand Rapids startup, soon to be opening up their own space, and it's on us. We want you to try their coffee.
That's right.
Because it's good, and you should be having it.
What's next?
Yeah, I think next up, we're gonna do a little bit of like clearing the stage, and we'll doing some sound checking. But I do believe we do have another spoken word, and I think it is the
one and only,
the mastermind behind the diatribe. I don't know if he goes by that, but it's Marcel Fabel Price. He's a North American writer, teaching artist, community advocate, motivational speaker, and executive director of a nonprofit organization called The Diatribe. Fabel is the 2016 recipient of the Community Advocate Award, a 2017 40 Under 40 honoree, and is currently holding the title of Poet Laureate. Yes, Grand Rapids has a Poet Laureate, and you are about to hear from that Poet Laureate. He's the youngest, the first person without a college degree, and only person of color to hold this title of Poet Laureate in Grand Rapids, Michigan. His work has been heavily influenced by contorting personal experiences into a kaleidoscope used to examine glass ceilings from points of fragility. He lives to be a beacon of vulnerability for those who can relate to his work. So.
And I can say about Mr. Fabel, I've been in community a lot of years. I'm pretty old. One of the most innovative minds in community building we have.
Yeah.
Burton Heights, Grand Rapids, 3rd Ward are blessed to have Marcel Price working in the community.
And also, so we've now bookended, and we'll all get up and go together. You don't have to worry about it. No, Daryl and I will walk off, and you guys can walk off with us. But because we're out in the city, and right today, even though it's COVID and there's not really such thing as a large in-person event, we are having events happening, and we're bookending our, this panel with 2 spoken words, both of which now have a group organized for Breonna Taylor over in the corner. And so I'm inviting Marcel. Like, is this the energy that you are up for stepping into? Because we are in a live action scenario, and I think Kid Kane, it sort of took her off guard, and I thought she did an amazing job. But I think this is real. Let's do it. All right.
All right. And my humble opinion's coming up after that.
Yeah.
You can take it. Yeah. Feel free to move the chairs or whatever. Oh man, this is gonna be super different because normally if I'm speaking at like a library or in anywhere and I hear like a creaky door, I get thrown off. So this is gonna be an experience for all of us. So I want to start off by being really, really honest and transparent. A year ago, I had what I thought was a really, really, really good idea. Sometimes I think I have really good ideas and they're absolute trash ideas. This one I didn't think was absolute trash. The idea that I had is I knew there was a huge issue between how young people of color in my neighborhood interacted with police officers. So my idea is a way to maybe heal these issues that are going on. I was like, you know what we're going to do? We'll have a huge basketball game at Ottawa Hills High School. I wonder if I could have the Grand Rapids Police Department fund this basketball game. What we'll do during halftime is we'll have the young people say the issues, right? I had an uncle that was mishandled by police, right? I had a cousin that was drug out of their house. And I thought that this radical idea would create a grassroots, organic way for people to address harm, for people to listen to harm, And then to have a huge basketball game where maybe we saw some police officers get crossed over by some kids, right? And it's like everybody would have a great time. I thought that 50% of the proceeds could go to Ottawa Hills High School and could get the kids new shoes and new jerseys. And the other 50% could go to the neighborhood association and help fund National Night Out so that we could go around all these kids and they could talk about how they use their skills to make a healthy impact. So what I did is I created a proposal, and I sent it to the Grand Rapids Police Department Foundation, and I heard nothing. 2 months later, what I heard was what happened to Cavassier Phillips. 2 months later, what I heard was what happened to Breonna Taylor. And it's wild to me that in a city that talks so much about innovation, right? About caring about doing stuff that's organic and natural, that for some reason still we refuse to take actionable steps that are organic and natural to solve these issues. And that's an issue, right? This first poem that I'm going to read, it's gonna just describe itself. It's called When I Die. If I am murdered by a police officer, a bouncer, a neighborhood watch official, you know, in some parts of our city, we got these people just marching around with guns that think that they're neighborhood watchers somewhat anyway. An individual just standing their ground or at random, and I'm described as disgruntled, angry, or impossible to handle, do not hold a candlelight vigil in hopes that the flames will be seen from the heavens. Due to my past, I more than likely will not end up there. Do not let anyone read poetry about how unforgivable this is while not holding the city accountable or intending on doing anything more than just gathering. Do not let those I love hold hands with the people who wanted me gone long ago. Do not let those who have said words behind closed doors say words when I cannot. Do not appear to be leaves, once full of life, now piling on top another for one's enjoyment. I love the fall. But this was not the way I wanted to celebrate my final one. Litter the city with organic fury that will dissolve back to the earth like rose petals or embers from Molotov cocktails. Do not let Black Lives Matter Grand Rapids pretend to give a flying about my black ass. Do not let the mayor give words of wisdom while hiding blindly behind the wrath that should ensue. Burn this mother down. I want the city to be the candle. I want all of the 1%ers' investments to be the wax I see melting from the afterlife. Do not let this incident go unpunished. Or let those saying, I just don't see why they'd wreak havoc on their own community. It seems kind of counterproductive, wave their tongues confederate. This city has never been ours. They show us this daily. Is we can't afford neighborhoods that have historically always been our own. You pull the rug out, replace it while we are in the air mid-tumble and expect us to land on our feet? This catastrophe was not a hug of acceptance. It was not a handshake. It was not meant to be parted with so quickly. Do not post about me for a week like Sandra or Alton or Trayvon and pretend that that is activism. Pretend that you've done all you can from the comfort of your home, from the safety of your cell phone, and the security of your privileged safety pin to your overpriced jacket when I was rewarded none of the above. Do not let the media outlets that did not publish positive stories while I was alive choose to misinterpret what I was saying during my existence, or those that were too scared to defend me while I was breathing pretend to care. Do not let my mother or wife speak at this time. They are the empathetic ones and far too patient to convey what I would have liked to at that moment. Do not let Jesse Jackson around either. Please call people out. Do not let people say that he was a saint or the future, because clearly I was destined to end here. I promise the future will be brighter with the youth carrying the torch. Do not let once friends be heard when they try to utter words of kindness. Ex-peers say they knew me well. Ex-co-workers say they enjoyed working with me. I understand that I am a vessel for change. Nobody praises the spacecraft when it collides to the Earth after its voyage, but it will burn bright and hot just the same. So spread my ashes in the fire so they can rebuild atop my body. And if gentrification eats away at what grows from the soil, eradicate the vermin and try again. I appreciate y'all. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening to all of the incredible people that we had, the Latina network that was here. There's so many people in our city that are doing such incredible work. This next poem is about work that we do. So believe it or not, we do work where we go into schools. We teach young people about redlining. We teach them about the 1930s lending practices. We show them the lending maps, and we show them in the 30s where the city chose to invest and how their neighborhoods are a direct reflection of that investment at the time. We call this class Writing to Right Wrongs. We teach kids about their fair housing rights, and we also try to educate young people on why people are going into the urban cores and offering their families and parents money for their houses, just because a lot of that education isn't being done. As of late, we run into this weird issue with gatekeeping, right? And people deciding what is or what not is not relevant, and it sucks. But I'm not going to talk about that negativity. Instead, I'll talk about the work. And this is a poem about the work. If any of you want to learn more about the Diatribe, go to thediatribe.org. Instagram, search the Diatribe. Facebook, search the Diatribe. Join the email list, and you can learn more about that. But this is a poem to my students because they're the best. Yeah. It's called The Stories They Share. On Tuesdays, I use poetry as a Trojan horse to teach the not so wide-eyed about the fair housing movement. The cause of their slumber could be that talking about civil rights before the crack of dawn is snooze-worthy at best. That before lunchtime, I am more monotone than high definition. Or at 7:30 in the morning, when the sun hasn't even tucked in the moon yet, and my pupils haven't even wiped the sleep tucked away in the corner of their window sills, I fear waking them. I feel less deserving of their attention or priority treatment than the stories they share when woke. Free rights of transient home lives, unjust evictions, and constant noise. I respect their lust for peace and slumber, so I let them. One of my favorite students' dreams for at least the first 20 minutes of each class is I speak in an octave not high enough to reach his adolescence. You see, I don't want to wake him up, so I don't. America has shown us that when their eyes are open to infinity, that it lusts for spreading the most vibrant across the streets, car seats, and hotel balconies. That it yearns for us to teach them to speak so it can spread their everlasting sea on the evening news, on repeat on Facebook, shared on repeat on Facebook as he dreams. I have nightmares of sharpshooters that crave immortality through destruction like the crescendo of a history book. And I know they'd put it on repeat. Share his beautiful throat-morphing martins, magicianing his Adam's apple in a mouth that spits out lead and calls it a murderer's legacy before he could even have one. Favorite student number 2, y'all, smacks her gum with confidence. Shows me protective styles are made to defend her moneymaker mind brilliant, and she's going to be the first black female whatever she wants. I'm terrified of giving her even more wealth and fear their hunger wanting to steal her from us will grow. until I realized she could be praying in a church, pulled over for a turn signal, playing my heartstrings in a symphony, sleeping in her bed, or rattling off something brilliant in our classroom, and they won't lust for her exit any less. On Tuesdays, we give them shields to pair with tongues, swords. I can't afford to give them a weapon when their phone can be seen as one. I hear, so my cousin wouldn't want to go to court without a lawyer, so this is like 1-800-CALL-SAM, but for unfair home stuff, I reply, kinda, but it's not so black and white. She always breezes through with something elegant, chimes in because housing affects us all. It's an everyone issue, right? She connects the stars. They make universities out of constellations, drawing fine strokes between redlining and quality of education as they learn to lead us north. I can't help but to wish them back to REM. In week 1, we learned about how Dr. King ignited this movement. We talk about his final speech, Somewhere I Read. Somewhere I read that a young man once had a dream, grew into a man that had enough courage to be a dam to a nation, and they Katrina'd him, intentionally blew through his levee. Somewhere I read that education was one of the only weapons we had in the fight against inequality. Somewhere I read that teens are learning to stand even after bullets rip through their innocence. One day, I hope to read that the ones we encourage to lead feel safe enough to do so, knowing we will kick down the doors even when the monsoon is at our doorstep. Open our windows and let the hurricanes in, knowing our young people are outside braving the storm. My biggest fear is the older generation not even willing to toss them an umbrella, much less their body is a sandbag to the chaos. On Tuesday, when our students finally feel comfortable enough to rise, I will tell them somewhere I read, April 3rd, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee, in spite of a severe storm warning, people came, warned them that the world is full of unnatural disasters, show them even nature doesn't match the power inside of them. And if anyone tries to stop them, our bodies will be the only thing we shudder around them before any devil even attempts to take a shot. That we will be damned if we are seen just sitting inside and watching. You all, this is an incredible moment in not only our city's history, but our country's history. On the nights of the riots, when I was downtown, I won't say if I was or was not there in the moment because, you know, they're trying to snag people up. But there was one moment where there was tear gas and I needed to get a breath of fresh air. So I snuck into the hallway by the UICA off of Division. And when I went into that hallway, there were 2 young men sitting there. And they were like, "You're the poet." And they were 2 students from high school. And their dads weren't downtown, and their uncles weren't downtown. There wasn't a lot of adults down there, but there was a lot of kids standing up for y'all, standing up for us. So I want to encourage you all to stand up as much as you can, right? Whether you're over here marching, yelling for Black lives, whether you're joining a city commission seat, causing chaos, being relentless, do something, right? Do something. Thank you, guys.
All right. We're gonna have a quick. We're gonna have a quick stage change, but Marcel Fabel Price. That's who you just heard from. You know, when we talk about the First Amendment, we often think we're talking about what we're reading in the news. Like, that is the First Amendment in action. Like, keeping it real in a city. God, thank you for what you do. Okay, so next up you're going to see a podcast, a live recording of Grand Rapids all-black podcast, and it's called In My Humble Opinion, and it's going to take a few minutes to get the stage set for that, so stick around. Again, get some Solidarity coffee on us.
And then coming up, in my humble opinion, the hottest, fastest growing podcast in Grand Rapids with Mr. Ramon Nickerson and crew.
We'll see you in a few minutes.
All right.
Yeah. Check one. Yeah.
Test. All right. Last but not least, we have, in my humble opinion, a fast-growing podcast from everybody from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Black perspective, unapologetic, always honest. Give a round of applause for, in my humble opinion.
Hey. Okay. Yeah. I'm Will. We have Daph, Mr. Mondo here.
What's up, people?
We're from In My Humble Opinion, and we were asked to talk about the black perspective here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. If there even is a black perspective. Experience. Let's call it an experience, right? Depending on where you're from in this city, what zip code you're from, it's going to depend on what experience you have. I'm looking at the camera, Mondo. Okay? There's a camera there, and there's one there. Hey, people. So we're going to start with Mondo. Let's talk about your black experience or light-skinned experience.
See, when I think of black, though, because it's an array, black of color, so I think of culture, right? So you think about the black culture in Grand Rapids. So let's look at downtown, and everything that's around here, it's like, is anything inclusive to the black culture, right? So you'll have, you like you said before, you can go somewhere with your eyes closed, and it'll sound like black culture, but then when you open your eyes,
not black.
And it's not welcoming, right? It'd be like, take black culture and all the rules, all the stipulations where you can't enter or enjoy or come to a place is all, no black this, no black that, right? And that's kind of how it goes.
So kind of like your culture can come in, but you can't.
Correct. Yep, and I think that's one of the biggest issues, right? They'll say, oh, downtown is this happening place and there's so much to do. So then people will come from, just say Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, Lansing, and then they get here and it was like, it was nothing for me to do, for us to do, right? But for other cultures, right? Good, bad, right, or wrong, it's plenty to do. It's happening place. You can go enjoy Beer City this and Beer City that and feel welcome and feel wanted.
Right.
But on the other hand, when your cousins come down here, it's kind of like, got to find something else to do.
It's always the else.
No.
No, we're not gonna go to the else. I also feel the same way. I'm gonna piggyback off of what you said, Mondo.
Oh, okay.
That this city isn't very inclusive for black people in the community. Like on my way down here, I was driving through downtown. The thing that I saw was there were no people who were black like me who were just walking down through downtown and enjoying the city. There were people who were different races who were enjoying the city, but they could have came from somewhere else. But this is the city that I live in that I can't even really enjoy because there's
Hold it to your mouth.
Wow. Because there's no inclusiveness in there's no inclusiveness in Grand Rapids, I feel like, for black people.
Okay. So now we're gonna get real because that was some nice politically correct stuff to say. I'm so proud of you guys. This is what I think. There's a plan. There's a plan here in Grand Rapids, right? There's a plan for this city to grow. There's a plan for this city to be amazing. But that does not include us, right? You think about gentrification. And you think about your neighborhood, and they tell you, you want a great neighborhood? And you like, hell yeah, I want a great neighborhood. They like, you want better schools? Hell yeah, I want better schools. They like, cool, we're going to come give you all that stuff, but in 2 years, your black ass got to leave, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is that they come in, and they buy up property, and they buy it at a low cost, and then it raises the property for everyone else, and then you no longer can afford to live where you grew up at, right? So you take Wealthy Street, for example. You go on Wealthy. If you leave, I left for almost 10 years. I came back and Wealthy was changed. Nothing that resembled black was still there. All of it was turned into unwelcoming environment.
A hipster more type community.
Yeah, but that's the thing is that it's unwelcoming, right?
But it's your own community. Like, how are you gonna unwelcome me into my community?
Because it's better.
It's
a better
not
community.
better.
It is. They said so.
That's what they told us.
Yeah. They said you
That's
want
why they changed the zoning, right? Is that what they do it?
Or they did it for the votes.
Yeah.
Right.
But then when I think about the experience of being black, sometimes you gotta leave, right? So I left Grand Rapids, and I thought that I was having a good experience here. Became successful here, went to college here, all of these great things, and then I left and found out that I wasn't even having a black experience. I was having a Will experience, right? So I went to bigger cities and see how those cities are welcoming to every race of people, and that the black people thrive. You think of a place like D.C., you think of places like Atlanta, even Chicago. As bad as it is over there, it's welcoming for the people who live there. Here, it's not. It's not. I can't enjoy downtown, like you said, like some of the Caucasian people can enjoy downtown. You can't walk downtown. Today I was getting my hair cut, and Jamal Glenn was telling, not Jamal, his brother. Anyway, he was telling me, he was like, you can't even go downtown and walk with a white styrofoam cup anymore without them stopping you. He's like, I've been stopped about having a white cup, like if there was liquor in there or whatever.
Well, let me chime in on that because I work downtown Grand Rapids, so I'm down here every day, 8 hours a day. And the way I'm treated when I'm at work is totally different when I come down here after hours, right?
You have a uniform on, though.
And then I don't even wear a uniform half the time. But I mean, and then it's different, right? The vibe and energy is clearly he's working, right? He's in the big truck or whatever, and I'm working. But after 5, it's kind of different. The same people who were speaking to me earlier, hey, how's it doing? Stay warm, it's a nice day outside. It's kind of looking at me up and down like it's a problem with me. I'm the same person. Nothing about me has changed other than I'm not getting paid right now. And then you try to, I don't know. It's almost like we're talking about code. It's almost like when we're talking about code switching, right? And it's like, why do I have to change as a person so I can feel welcome in your establishment?
Or in your own community. Like, this is our community too, but it just doesn't feel like it's our community. You can come downtown and you can go to any one of these bars and go inside the bars or feel like you're gonna feel comfortable inside the bars. But when you go inside of these establishments, there's nobody really in there who looks like you. There may be like 3 or 4 other people. And then some people come in and they
check the kitchen.
And I'm not. You come in and a lot of people do have friends of different backgrounds and things like that, and they may be hanging out with their friends, but there's nowhere where I can go and I can feel like I'm inclusive to what's going on in the establishments because they make me feel like I'm unwelcome to come into their places.
And it's cool because it's cool for businesses in areas be a melting pot, right? For everybody to come together, right? And that's cool because if it was for a black business to be here, then you can't say, well, hey, this is for black people. It has to be for everybody, right? You have to be welcoming for everybody, right? You have to have a night. So if it's a bar or something, you have to have a night for everybody. And then I get it. If I own a bar down on Ionia, I'm not gonna give you Saturday night,
no,
right? Because Saturday night, now all my people are free. They don't gotta work. Come down here.
Right.
So it's like, do we get the opportunity to be able to get brick and mortar so that we can have our own down here without any issues?
I think that 2 things.
It's chilly out here.
You better grab a spoon. Dad joke. Listen, when you look at equity and equality, right? I don't know what he's saying, but when you look at equity and equality, right? So making things equal, like downtown, they make it equal, right? So
for themselves.
But
no.
Listen,
it's right.
Listen,
Equal and equity.
Equal is 2 different things.
Yep.
So it's equal meaning that, hey, we're open from 9 to 5. Anybody can come over here. And then you go and they say, yeah, but not people who wear chains, not people who wear hats, not people who wear Jordans, not people who wear buffs. None of those
people who have melanin.
Who have melanin, right? So it's equal, and the city is trying to be equal, but there's no equity in there. It's like, yes, everybody can do it, but sometimes some people need a little bit more so that it can be even. And I don't think that this city does that. They say, oh, Grand Rapids is a booming city. For who? Grand Rapids is a great place to live. For who?
Yeah.
Right? As much as they're putting in this money downtown, as we see them building all of this stuff, When is it
Yeah.
going to overflow
Putting
into
money
the
into
communities
transportation.
from like the 49507 where I was raised? When are we going to get some of that money, right? And I'm going to go my tangent right quick.
Wait, but you
but
be
this is
out
the
of the
thing,
community
they
before
need
you
more
even get the
money.
money because
Right.
they're gonna gentrify the community. So what are you waiting on?
Yeah. But then that goes to equity. 49507-6 needs more money than way out here somewhere or downtown, right?
But even if they get the money, it's still not gonna be for you. It's gonna be for the gentrification of that part of town.
But I thought gentrification was to make things much better.
It makes it better for people of outside of the
Now,
community.
people from
who
outside,
want to
yeah.
move into the community.
Now, it's a word, I cannot pronounce it. Revitalization. I said revitalization.
Yeah, right.
See, that's what we need to revitalize communities, not gentrify communities. Because when we revitalize them, we're giving them life, right? The people that's in the community, we're giving them life. We're providing
You're
opportunities
growing,
and
you're
resources,
developing.
right? And then, but when we gentrify, we knock everything down, and then I come make it because I'll be there in 10 years.
Yeah, like I said, there is a plan for Grand Rapids. If there's a 5-year plan, 2 of those years belong to you, dark people.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them belong to the rest of the people, right?
The non-Negroes.
The non, yeah.
Okay.
And so if you look at it this way, if you're going to be, the black experience is dictated by people who are not black.
Correct.
Right? So when you're in a room and they're saying 49507, these are the plans, is there anybody in that room who looks like you who's making these plans for the neighborhood that you live in? Like, we have to understand that sometimes just because you're skin folk, don't mean you're kinfolk, right? And so if you're not being inclusive and bringing the people who are directly going to be affected by whatever changes you're making. And I'm not talking about going to get somebody from Caledonia just because he's black and ask him about the black experience here in Grand Rapids, or someone who don't have anything to do with what's going on.
Pause parenthetically right there. What we see so much is that people who aren't from the community that
Are running the community.
no, not even run a community. They're the spokesperson for the community. So then my question is, the gatekeepers or whoever who are grabbing these people, like, we need you to go speak to
Tokenism.
Right. But see, that's my thing with tokenism. Now, you don't choose to be a token. They just pick you.
I
then
think
once
some
they
of
put
them
you
have
in
chose
position.
to be a token.
No, when they get in there is what they decide to do with it.
Some of these people
come in looking to be the
Some of
token.
these people in this community
How?
have already been. Do you? We'll talk about it. I'll tell you.
We talk about it right now.
I'm just saying, some of
You
these
ain't gotta say
people.
no names.
Some of these people have worked so hard to be inclusive in this community as a token, and they do things outside of their regular culture just so that they can fit in with the people that they want to be tokens of. They may not say, "Oh, I want to be a token," but you're working hard to become a token.
They soft shoe tap dance
I
to
don't
get
know.
in
They
positions.
tap dance, they jive, they shuffle, they hustle, they electric slide. I don't know what they do, but they get in there.
So once they get in there, right, then you're saying they no longer got our back.
Yeah. Like, if you, listen, if you put me in the room, right, and I get in that room, I'm going to make it real uncomfortable. If I'm in that room, I'm going to make it uncomfortable for everybody who's not trying to do what's best for the people who look like me, talk like me, walk like me, and live where I live. So if you're in that room and you're not making people uncomfortable, you're not doing your damn job.
But see, that's the problem. We're too worried about making those people in the room comfortable, but they're not doing nothing to make us comfortable.
Well, because we are inclusive people, Mondo.
Oh.
We have to be, right? We have to. When you look at the black experience, we are always being inclusive. We come downtown, we conform to what they say. We go here, we conform to what they say. But they come into our community, they don't conform to anything that we say, anything that we do. They come with their own rules and their own agenda, and then we have to then fit their agenda in our own damn neighborhoods. Don't make any sense. So as a black person, I feel like we are too inclusive at times. It's time to be selfish. It's time to be selfish, meaning that we have to take care of ourselves. We have to ensure that this black experience that we're talking about in Grand Rapids is really an experience and not a damn nightmare.
Right. And that's the thing. We just need something for ourselves, right? And that's why I said opportunity. They'll say the access.
But where's the opportunity going to come from?
We have to ask them for that
I'm
opportunity.
not going to beg. Yeah, but you look at all of this stuff. Look around here. Look downtown. They keep building things. They keep putting things up. And there's nothing where they're like, hey, would you all like to be involved? Would you like to be inclusive in this situation? They have things, they do things, and they invite everybody else around except for the people of the black community.
But this what happens with the black community. Then you have to be the black and brown community. And nothing against our brown brothers and sisters, but you know, you get your stuff. You got a whole district, right?
Man, you go past Granville. Like,
Yep, and it's cool. We're happy for you.
nothing's wrong for it. Yeah.
Yep. But then when you need them numbers or those resources, then it's the black and brown.
Right.
But then when it's black people needing stuff, it's like y'all on your own. Y'all will figure it out. Y'all got black on black crime, so we can't get involved.
Which
right?
is a myth, right?
Right.
Which is a myth because you kill who's closer to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to talk about black on black crime, you got to talk about white on white crime, Mexican on Mexican crime, whatever you want to call crime on crime. People commit crime against people who they live closer to. Nobody leaves from here and go all the way and say, I'm going to go to all white community just start killing white people. And no white person, I'm just going to go to a black community just kill all these black people because there's too much black on black crime.
And you made me lose my train of thought.
That's not hard.
Not at all. You get in my age.
That's
but,
usually me.
But also, so with that, when do we just get a piece of? I look at Alexander School, right?
Right.
Right in the middle of the neighborhood. You telling me it's no money to open up that, make that a rec center, make that something, a resource center for people in the community?
in like 10 years, I told
it's
you have
just
to wait.
sitting there empty.
No, why would
Empty.
you want to develop those people in that community so that they could come
Stay.
out and or stay and become a more diverse part of the community? Like, why would you want to develop those people in the community so that they can come and maybe possibly take over what you already have going on because you already have your narrative?
Well,
Boston Square. That's all I'm going to say. Look what they're doing over there.
Mm-hmm.
Look what they're doing over there.
Oh no! It's fine. No. They fine.
Oh, okay. You know, I'm from 49507. So hey, let's get it popping.
Yeah.
The other thing, if you want to increase the black experience or make it better, what we have to do as black people is start putting people who look like us inside of where they're making decisions at, you know. And so we have to put people in place. Like, we need to stand behind somebody who's going to come in and say to them, I'm going to have to turn because...
No, you good. I can see.
Okay. You have to...
Hold on. We might have it.
This is not the place, my brother. Okay. We appreciate you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
See?
Yeah. Okay. All righty.
See, now this is a good example.
No.
This is
How people feel.
No, this is a good example.
Hold on. You can let him go. Let him go. He's good. This is the issue right here. Here we are on a platform to talk. He's great. This is not the problem he wants. Like, trust me. What I'm saying is that this is a perfect example. We're having right now a conversation about the black experience. And immediately we're interrupted, right, by you. You come and you say, you this, you crack babies, you this, that, and the third.
Yep.
Let us have our time. There's a lot. There's black, white, Puerto Rican, Mexican, homeless, right? There's mental ill people too, right?
Yeah,
so those people should be able to have
that.
a lot.
And do you see us smoking, drinking, or cracking out, sir? But you do have the temperament of such people. But you have the temperament of them. So maybe, yeah, I've been arrested. But what does that have to do with
Have you
anything?
been arrested?
Yeah.
I don't know. You tell me.
You tell me.
Over here.
You're interrupting us. So you are the example. And I appreciate you because you're being the example of the ignorance.
That's in this community.
It's in this community.
But then you want to say, oh, it's the black people in the community who come down here and they do things in the community and they tear up the community.
Yep.
But it's people like
And it's
you.
people like
who
him.
You can come over here. You can interrupt us and say whatever you need to say. But then when we have a platform, you don't want us to talk on our platform. How about you go do whatever you need to do and make yourself a life, not over here.
So the problem.
We don't need police. We have each other.
The problem is
we got
this.
police. We got each other.
The problem is this.
So we'll speak your piece and then we ignore it. We'll get back
The
to
problem
what we
is
came here
this.
to do.
This is the problem. The problem is privilege.
Yep.
People think that they have the privilege to do what they want when they want to, and if this and I'm going to say this. If this was a black man doing this right now
It'd be
to
a
a white
problem.
podcast,
Yep.
there would be cops down
Come on.
here right now arresting him, throwing him on the floor, putting their knees in his neck,
Yep. Come on.
arresting him. But because he feels like he has the privilege
To
right,
come and
the
interrupt
right
us.
to come and interrupt, he's been here all day.
All day.
He has not once walked on stage. He has not once yelled. He has not once screamed. But right now, because we're sitting here, a minority podcast, he came from all the way over there yelling, screaming, until he made himself available right here. Privilege. But I'm here to tell you, I don't give a hell about your privilege. This is our platform. This is our time. And we're going to continue to talk, and you're going to go away. Because you're
good day,
unimportant.
sir.
You
Good
have
day.
a good day.
Goodbye.
Good day.
Sometimes you got to talk to ignorance with ignorance.
Yeah.
Because that's
Meanwhile,
all they understand.
back at the plantation.
Back on the plantation.
Oh, man.
Y'all should subscribe to our podcast. You can catch us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Look for the logo.
In my humble opinion, GR.
So listen, you guys, I'm going to stand up because my emotions is man.
Talk your talk. Do what you got to do to get
Listen.
what you need.
You want to know about the black experience. Boom, you just saw it. You
just
just
saw
saw
it.
the
We
black
just saw it.
experience, right? No matter what goes on and where we are, people think that they can say things like that to us. They can treat us a different way, and we have to take it. You know why? Because they feel as if we have to be included with them.
But here's the thing. Now, if I would have got aggressive with him,
it would have been your fault.
It would have been my fault, right?
Because you would have did something wrong.
Exactly. But this is my thing. When I'm down here working every day with these same people I see, we don't have these issues. But now, on a Saturday afternoon, everybody chilling, and, oh, man. You see how you can be having such a beautiful thing going and enjoying, and it just takes that one outside thing, right?
To mess up the whole thing.
Yeah.
So let me ask you guys this.
So let's get back to doing what we do best.
Talking.
So when you think about this whole black experience, and we all got friends from different cultures and things like that. Do you see the difference when you're out with your friends, how you're treated versus when you're by yourself in this inner city, Grand Rapids, downtown? If you go out with your coworkers at the same restaurant, you're going to be treated a little bit different. The same club, probably a little bit different. Grocery stores, everything is a little bit different when you're not the majority. If it's 3 black people, bad. If it's 1 black person, 2 white people, you may get a different response here in this city.
But even sometimes when you're with your non-black friends, and it's just you and them or your coworkers, so it's not even when you're not with them. Sometimes when you're with them, it's still a little bit different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but a lot of times if it's you and a group of people, because I frequent, downtown every now and then. When you're with a group of people who are of different races and it's a different minority group, you are treated a little bit different. But then if you come down and it's like you and 3 black friends, then it's completely different. It's like they've already stereotyped you and what kind of character you're going to be when you come into any type of establishment or their establishments or whatever.
I'll say true because I do enjoy downtown. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy it. Because it's really all we have.
When the Drinks was down here, when Max's was down here.
Girl, you bringing back old
I'm
memories.
just saying, but there's no type of places like that now. We can go. You're going to play my music when you over in any of these bars.
But I'm not saying even in the bars. I mean just being out because...
Oh, you like the water. Okay.
You might fit the description.
That's how you end up in the friend zone down
here.
That
that could be, though. That could be. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think with me having lighter skin, I do get treated a little bit better
than us.
Then a boy with the white sweatshirt on, I do probably would get.
Here
treated
comes the
better
collarism.
Yeah, and that's fine. I didn't create it. I just
enjoy it. Your light skin privilege.
Wow.
It sucks. So, I think that.
I hope you burn in the summer.
I think you're right, Mondo. I think that it's more welcoming.
Yeah.
It's more welcoming.
I'm not as much as a
It's
threat.
more welcoming to females, too, than it is to you also.
I'm not as much as a threat.
I ain't got no problem.
No.
Okay,
So
no.
so let me ask this, because I don't know how much time we got, and I don't want to go over.
Well, he stole
I
some
mean,
of our
he
time, so
already
we're gonna
took some
reclaim
of our time. So we're gonna take
Yeah.
our
Well,
black
well,
privilege.
that's what they do.
We're gonna take our
They-
black privilege and take our time.
Okay. What
Because
are some?
we on CP time anyways.
What are some things from even from downtown and from in the city? What are some changes or some things that you would like to see and things that you think that will help build community for
Access
us?
to resources.
Okay, and which resources would those be?
I think that a lot of the, like for one, better schools. Like we just need better schools, better buildings. And I know
Well, they look nice. On the outside, they look nice.
So does a present until you open it, it's a lump of coal.
The
So-
director of education is also Betsy DeVos.
Yeah. So
it's the infrastructure, not
Yeah.
the structure of the building.
I just think that, when you look at a lot of these communities, when you feel good and things look good, you tend to feel better about yourself, right? And if you go into a neighborhood and the houses are all messed up and it just looks dingy, it looks like you should be gloom and doom, right? But when they come in and gentrify a neighborhood, the first thing they do is start beautification. That's the first step. They come in and they try
pause
to,
right there. Let me ask this question. I'm going to play devil's advocate, right? I don't think I've ever.
No, you
did
can play
devil's-
devil.
That too. I'll play devil's advocate. What about when they say, "Hey, you need to take more responsibility for your own neighborhoods and community"?
I say, hey, no. and that's true. We do. We do need to take more responsibility for our neighborhoods.
But I think there are people in the community who are taking more responsibility in the neighborhoods and are doing things. They are doing things just like, so that event that you were a part of, and then Wood TV had the comment section or whatever, and people got mad because it was some event that was hosting more black businesses. So now it's a problem because you're taking care of your community. You're inviting people in your community to talk about their businesses, their entrepreneurships, and have different things that is welcoming to everybody in the community. But then it's a problem when you try to build on the resources that you have in the community, which are already small resources that you're building on, and then you're building on these resources and they don't even want you to do that. It's a problem when you do that. It's a problem when you try to be happy. It's a problem when you're not. And it's always an issue. So go ahead, finish, I'm sorry.
Thank you. No. I think that when you look at, you saying taking care of our own neighborhoods, and we are, but it doesn't get the light that it should.
Because that's the problem also.
And so we talked about this before. If I want to set the net, where did you get that box water from? Is this mine? Did somebody drunk you out of it?
All right. Drink it though.
Okay, so
God makes water.
What I'm saying is this: is that I'm not going to highlight the good things in the neighborhood because I want you to
Support
think that
black
neighborhood
businesses.
is bad, right? So I'm going to highlight all of the negativity in the neighborhoods, and so when the news come, they're going to talk about the bad things, right? They're going to talk about do they still sell crack?
They're gonna frame it.
No, I'm
just
like
say drugs.
It's
Yeah,
framing,
drugs.
yeah.
So drugs and stuff like that, right? But you had at Martin Luther King Park, you had a lot of black men who went up there to just pray for the violence and that's going on in the city. Yes, there were some cameras there, but that didn't get a lot of publicity or exposure like it should have. And had you been there, you'd have been like, man, you can feel the power that was on that basketball court. So that's not the narrative that we want to show for the 49507, 49504, that area, right? So now we're going to find something negative to counteract some of that positivity that's going on. So if I'm from the Upper Peninsula, whatever was going on up there,
right.
and I've never had an encounter really with black people, then my only exposure to black people is through the media, right? Or through someone who says, I've seen those
And the
black
media
people.
is going to
That's how
frame
they
it
do.
the way they want to frame it, especially for the characteristics of the people that are in
Right.
our community. So they're going to put whatever they want to put on the news, word it how they want to word it. Not saying that it didn't happen.
Right.
I'm just going to twist it a little bit so that I get the...
So even with that, so that goes back to culture, right? So they'll frame our culture as being really negative, like negative people. So was it past summer? Not the summer that passed, but the summer before. It was issues downtown, right?
Yes.
Summer sure has
There were a
passed.
bunch of isolated incidents. One was with, some black kids, right? Kind of small. Other issues, right? So when they discussed the black issue, it was a whole bunch of gang of black teens, blah, blah, blah. The other issues, You didn't mention it, right?
Just boys being boys.
Right. No, not even that. So then the narrative is painted, oh, this is from with the issue with the blacks. Then it's a shooting, right, on the west side. And then you make it fit the narrative like, oh, this was the blacks. So then now we got to hold stuff that ain't even ours. Like, well, we didn't have nothing to do with that, right?
So, and this is like just popped in my head, like things usually do. When you think about how... I'm going to pray for y'all.
That's too easy.
Please pray. Pray to Black Jesus for me.
What I'm saying is that there's two type of black people that white America likes, right? It's the non-aggressive, light-skinned people like Mondo.
But I'm a little aggressive.
You're not. That guy walked up here and he was like, Will, save me. So when you look at...
You was finna keep it real, go wrong, and I was going to have to hurt that man for you.
He looks strong, too. Listen.
He did. He was all sweaty.
But what I'm saying is that non-aggressive, you fit the narrative of being a person who I can approach. And then it's the other black person who says nothing and just go along with everything that's going on. Then you have a brother like me who I'm coming.
I mean, if we're going to sit up here and lie, go ahead.
Go ahead. Tell your story. It's your
Anyway,
story, Will.
Then
Tell
you
your
have
story.
a person like me.
Half truths and all.
I'm going to come in the room and I'm going to speak the truth. Like, I'm not going to hold back. And if I don't like it, I don't like it. Not saying that you wouldn't do that, Mondo. You would. Listen. But when you look at it this way, they'll say, oh, Mondo, you did something great. Right? Then they exclude you or take you away from the black community and set you out. And there's Mondo. Mondo did these great things, right? Then if Mondo do something bad, they take Mondo and put him back into the black community
Because
and
you
blame
no
the
longer
whole
belong.
black community for what Mondo did. But every time he does something great, they put him out in the spotlight. See, if Mondo can do it, then the other little black people should be able to do it. Or they'll say, against all odds, Mondo made it. And then it's like, but Mondo may have
with
had...
no father. With no father.
I
Just
am your
him
dad.
and a struggling single black mother, right?
They will highlight
they'll never highlight the black family.
Right.
Right? You never see the black family as a whole. It's always, he made it. Or the grandma. It got to be the grandma.
Yeah, but I think for me...
But there are dads, because every dad deserves a great...
Every kid deserves a dope father.
They do. They do. They do. Oh, I would just wish Mondo's daughter had a dope father. I just wish she did in my heart. But when you look at it, you made me lose my train of thought.
I'm sorry. That's usually me, guys.
I know. But
y'all slacking.
When you look at the black experience, sometimes it's that they try to separate you, especially here in Grand Rapids. I've learned that after being gone and coming back and being a little bit more successful than I was when I left, I can tell the difference in the way that people treat me, tell the difference in the way of the conversations that people have with me, and then some of that passive, aggressive type language no longer exists in some areas. But then you see people who are here who doing, a shout out to my age group, not yours, Mondo, because we got some awesome, like, this generation
Young
of
brothers,
people.
brothers doing good. Sisters, young brothers and sisters doing a lot.
Good, are doing great. But I think that that's not highlighted, and the difference is sometimes you have, like I said, you have to leave and come back to actually know what you want.
Did it make you appreciate it more?
No, it made me understand that as a black person in Grand Rapids, that I wasn't fully getting the whole experience that I deserved, because it just, you get what you get, and if you don't know what you're getting is not all that you can get, then you accept it, right?
And it's not to say that everybody else
cold.
shouldn't enjoy it, but it's like, give us something.
Something. They're like, they have the Black Lives Matter rally over there, right? And people say, why you got to have Black Lives? We should not have to have a Black Lives Matter. We have a Black Lives Matter because of racism, right? And they say, oh, we need to fix racism in Grand Rapids. Black people need to understand. No, racism is not a black problem.
It isn't, because
we can't fix it because it's not ours. We don't own it. So how can we fix something that doesn't belong to us? We just have to tolerate it. It's like having a mental illness and somebody in your family having a mental illness. They have the mental illness.
Right.
You have to tolerate the mental illness.
Yep.
So racism is a mental illness that white people have, and they have to go and get treatment and help and things like that for it. We can't fix that for you.
So with like police, right? They say we have to work on different things with the racism. Stop being racist.
True.
That's easy.
That's it.
That's easy.
You don't want to profile black people and stuff like that?
But a lot of these police don't understand the community that they police in because they don't know anything about the people that they are policing.
And the culture of the people.
Or the culture. They don't go into these communities and say, oh, let me learn about these communities. Let me talk to these people in the communities. They go into the communities, they do their job, they police, and they learn nothing about the community. So therefore, when they go to police or whatever they do, ride around,
so they can't serve or protect.
So
they can't even serve or protect because you don't know the people you're
not
serving. So how can you protect them?
You can't. That's true too. But yeah, okay, you made a point.
I think
Gold star for Mondo.
Now you're at 1/2 star.
Always piggybacking off of the idea.
Right. But to speak about the police that you're talking about, I think that when you look at, they say all of this training that they get, and that's cool, but I think the best training is when you go and you meet these people and you eat amongst these people, you go to these community events off work to kind of figure out what is it that make these people tick, what is it that you can have common ground on. I don't think it has anything to do with their training that they're getting to become police officers. That has nothing to do with it. That
Correct.
training has been proven to work when used correctly,
Yeah.
right? What happens is someone already has some type of preconceived notion of black people. Then they become a police officer. Then they have a badge, and they have a gun, and they have authority. And those things start coming out because they feel like they have the right to do it because they're in control. So it's not the training of the police officer. I believe it's the personal.
It's the person.
The personal characteristics of some police officers that happen to be white.
But just
right?
imagine if they were able to sit down with us, like you said, just hang out in the neighborhood, patrol the neighborhood, not looking and searching for suspects, but actually patrol, get to know the people, the kids, the business owners and stuff like that. And then that way you know, oh, it's Friday, Will gonna be loud, drunk on his porch, ain't gonna hurt a fly, right? But then you see Will walking from the liquor store to home, oh, a vandal.
Right.
Lock him up, put him away, right?
Right.
But that don't just go for police officers, because you look at even our local politicians or leaders or whatever you want to call them, people, you don't see them either.
You never see them.
They're not trying to enhance the black experience either, right?
In the
And we put these
community,
people in office. We're going and we're voting for them, and they're supposed to have our agenda on the table, and they don't.
Because they
that's
came
the
to our
problem.
church and said, hey.
But that's our fault.
Will you come vote
I think
for
we
me?
should take some blame on that because we give them our vote for free. We don't make them work for our vote. We don't say, hey, I'm going to vote for you and you do this. They just say, well, I'll try to do this.
But
just
sometimes,
go on and vote for
but
me.
then some
and
of
then
them
we
are
say,
already,
oh, they're black, so we're going to vote for them.
Some of them are already in office and said that they were going to do things, and where are they?
And then with us, where we don't
They-
put our money, we don't have a voice. So what we have to do, we have to pull our resources together and just say, hey, we picked this person, we're going to back this person. So if you continuously want us to support you, we're going to vote you in, because they don't want you there, but it's enough of us to get you in. And then you just do your job, and then you help us with what we're doing, and then we'll continue to support you.
I personally am very disappointed in the municipalities of the city of Grand Rapids.
Why?
Because I just don't feel like they make the black experience inclusive to the black people in the community besides the tokens that you talked about earlier.
But do we make them? Right?
No.
It's not that they're going to care, because what's going to happen is a lot of times they're going to do whatever they need to do to please both sides of the fence, and they're going to halfway please our sides of the fence and then do whatever they need to do to make sure the structure of this city of Grand Rapids continues to look the way it does for them and everybody else and not for us.
And then that's why I said we have to put somebody. We have to quit letting them say, okay, well, here's so-and-so, right? We have to be like, you know what? I know a strong community leader.
Okay.
Let's get behind this person.
Okay, if that's
And
the
that's
case,
what we don't do.
So people are
We don't.
protesting and they're having these things, and you say, okay, I'm gonna follow a strong community leader, but then at the same time, these people come down here and they do these things and they protest and they have their opinions, but nobody's supporting them.
Yeah, but
you know what I'm saying? If you look at the black community and you look at, it's not like people are like, oh, yay, go. You're going to go down here. You're going to fight what's injustice in the city of Grand Rapids. These people are on Facebook talking about crab broils.
Just
I'm
could not
do
wait
that.
to say that.
And see, when we have supporting resources, then we would have known about this event. We would have known about this event podcast in the park, right?
But these social media platforms are so huge that people can't communicate these things. People choose to communicate what they want to communicate. When we put this out here and we all shared this event, I went to the event and it's like 500 people. You know what I mean? And not many of them were people of our community.
And I think that's because sometimes we get so used to not being included, we exclude ourselves. We're like, oh, it ain't for us anyway.
Exactly.
Like, they ain't gonna have nothing for us anyway, so why go downtown? And then it's downtown. So, black people in downtown,
you don't want to turn the corner the wrong way. Ooh, he fell off his bicycle or something. Oh, Lord, fix it, Jesus.
I think he hit his head. But so if we don't have that experience down here, then we figure if it's downtown, it's not for us.
Oh, Lord.
Do you?
Focus.
Yes.
I'm focusing. I'm listening.
Focus.
But
listen, he need help.
But listen, when you look at
Get your final thought in, brother.
Yeah, because she's gone. My final thought is this: is that if you want to enhance the black experience in Grand Rapids, then you gotta get some common black folks on the boards of the people who making the decisions. Don't just get somebody who, because they're black, automatically that's who you're gonna pick. Get some people who live in the communities to be on these boards and things. So what happens, this is my final thought. What happens is they'll have forms where you can come and voice your opinion, but they don't have the opportunity for you to be in the room. So they come and tell you what they're going to do, or they tell you what already has happened, because they always have a meeting before the meeting. They already made a decision. Yeah, there was a meeting before the meeting, so we're going to come out here and sugarcoat it to you guys. I think that we need to, as black people, start to get on these boards, start to make them work for our votes, start to make them respect where we live, and respect us as people, as a collective. We have to come together. And I always say, right now is the best time, because it feels like the 60s. And I wasn't born back there, Mondo was. But when you look at the 60s, how people were coming together, like right now is the time. Right now is the time for us to come together and push our own agenda. We need our own agenda. We need to understand that it's us.
Rants.
And I am done.
Hell of a tangent.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, thank the people.
Thank you, people.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for listening to us.
Subscribe.
We're in
like
my
us on
humble
Facebook.
opinion. Yeah. I'm
Check
Daphne.
us out.
That's Mondo.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
William.
And Will.
I'm a dope father.
So what are we going to do with our opinions?
We're
Keep
going to
them
go.
humble. Keep those opinions humble and keep them coming. We appreciate you guys. Hope that if you're black, your experience
still
in
talking, ain't he?
Grand Rapids is better.
Thank
We're
you.
out. They came
Bye.
on stage
All
like,
right.
let's go.
Thank you. In my humble opinion.
It's the most exciting 3 hours with the smallest gathering of people in Grand Rapids.
It was. Great dialogue from everybody.
And everybody on the live stream, thank you for sticking around. We'll be posting this stuff afterward as well, if anybody missed it.
I am froze.
I'm
My hands
froze.
froze. My feet froze. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Thanks for making Grand Rapids better. Thanks for having honest dialogue on how we can make things better. I'm committed to be a bridge builder after today. I don't know about you.
Yes, I will build a bridge. I thought you were about to tear down something a few minutes ago. But
Sometimes,
but we can build.
Sometimes you got to stoop to conquer, bro. So,
all right. Thank you, guys.
Peace, Kings.